Lord of the Mysteries, A Time Traveler in the Fourth Age by author Kai Yun-ji. Chapter 26-50. After a cordial and friendly conversation, the Mechanical Heart team continued their patrol duty, and Shah-Ir and the other two began to return home. Alice continued to follow Shah-Ir and Martin all the way to the Backland bridge. "Do you have anything else to do?" Shah-Ir asked in a puzzled tone. "Give me money." Alice took a deep breath and said with a sweet smile. "Give me money." "What money?" "I invited the beautiful Miss Alice to stroll along the Tussock River simply because I like her, not because I want your gold pounds." Shah-Ir continued to play dumb. "I'm telling you, if you dare to default on your debt, the consequences will be very serious." Alice's smile remained unchanged. "Isn't that romantic? Am I not a gentleman?" Shah-Ir pointed to the crimson moon in the sky. "The bright moon is my witness." "I suddenly remembered that I seemed to have forgotten to tell Deacon Ekinzer about your becoming a Beander," Alice said as she turned and started to walk towards the bridge area. "Here's your reward." Shah-Ir shrugged and chose to pay. He stuffed a bill into the hands of Alice, who didn't move at all. £10. No more. Alice looked at the big head of August in her hand and rubbed it in disbelief. It was indeed one, and only one. "Any questions? Your hourly wage is even higher than most middle-class people. In less than 2 hours, you earn what a dock worker would earn in more than 3 weeks of hard work. It's amazing." Shah-Ir clapped and laughed. "I helped you fight the werewolf." Alice opened her mouth and said persistently. "Are you hurt? If you are injured, then I can send you to the best hospital in Backland. After all, we are friends who have fought together." Shah-Ir turned the revolver in his hand and said, "We all decided to go and watch the fun together, how can it be included in the reward? It's not certain who protected whom, right? You. I." Although Alice thought it made sense, in the past, she could get at least 100 for this trip, but now it's only 1/10. "Alice, I can't help it. You make so much money from me that I can barely afford to eat." "What about you? Have you saved enough money to advance to Sequence 7? If you were promoted to Sequence 7, wouldn't it be more expensive for me to ask you for help? It's not easy, let's understand each other." Shah-Ir said this and walked slowly towards the West District. Martin was a little uncomfortable at first, thinking that his young master was being a little too harsh in lowering the price, but after hearing the end, he stopped talking and just followed silently. "The more you spend, the less you can afford. Is this okay? Hey, you half-baked guy, do you know how much it costs to advance to Sequence 7? I won't even tell you the potion formula, but one main ingredient costs £600. How can I advance?" Alice thought about how she, who had been struggling alone in the capital of another country, had a promising future here with Shah-Ir, a winner in life. She chased after him with both anger and amusement. "Have you at least collected enough money for one main material?" Shah-Ir made a simple calculation and said. "No." Alice shook her head and began to complain. "I am a believer in the sun. How can I only think about myself? I used a lot of the money I earned from cheating you to buy food for those who need warmth here, in the name of the sun." Alice felt even more troubled when she thought of the Church of the Eternal Sun in Intis. One church, but so many philosophies. The Inquisition was relatively extreme, keen on arresting heretics and pagans and torturing them. The Preaching Brotherhood is similar to the former, emphasizing the brutal crackdown and cleansing of heretics, cultists, and wild extraordinary people in order to promote the orthodox teachings of the Eternal Sun. The Mendicant Order, Fraternal Order, is relatively better. They advocate moderation of desires, begging for food and practicing asceticism, and preaching in various poor areas, so that more people can believe in the Eternal Sun. But the girl who grew up in the countryside didn't quite understand. The treatment given by the church was quite good, and asceticism was understandable, but why did they still have to beg for food? It always feels weird to beg for food from wealthy people, but isn't it even more problematic to beg for food from poor people? As believers of the sun, shouldn't we take the initiative to give food to those in need? The sisters in the Nine Sisters are relatively nice, although there are also a lot of troubles within the organization. Alice just felt unhappy staying in Intis, so she ran to Backland. It was true that she wanted to earn some of the church's overseas assignment subsidies. You're still proud. Shah-Ir was a little surprised. Do you know how many people in need I have helped? Alice raised her chin proudly. Master, I can testify that Miss Alice is indeed helping those in need for free. I helped her arrange the food she bought for distribution. Martin testified that he had witnessed many of Alice's good deeds with his own eyes, otherwise he would not have trusted this lady from Intis so much. You mean, you use the money you earn from the followers of the night to distribute food to potential followers of the night in Backland and promote the faith of the eternal blazing sun, and I should praise you for being a kind girl. Is that what you mean, Alice? Shah-Ir couldn't help but marvel at this guy's moral level. Isn't his operation too flexible? You use my money to bribe my believers in your name. Are you still proud? Hey, if I wasn't there, would you take the initiative to go to the East District to distribute food to those in need? Besides, I'm spending the money I earned. I've worked hard and helped you loan people for free. I don't even ask you to think well of me. Can't I just ask you to praise the sun? Alice felt that her idea was correct. She was walking on the path of justice and the eternal sun would protect her. Praise the sun. Forehead. Martin was silent at this time. This was true, but his young master might be the future bishop of night. You help others for free, but you charge me for it. Shah-Ir couldn't help but laugh. You have money. Alice blurted out. She doesn't beg for food, so what's wrong with her making money through her own abilities? What about friendship? Even if you don't mention me, Martin has helped you so much, do you have the nerve to cheat him? Shah-Ir stretched out his hand and smiled at the crimson red that fell on his fingertips. I didn't cheat him. I'm the one who's cheating you. Alice doesn't even bother pretending now. If she doesn't cheat the nobles of Loan, who else will she cheat? Can't you be cheaper? Shah-Ir thought that he only had 390 pounds of pocket money left this month. He felt a little toothache and wondered what use this guy would be to him. As for the funds that were actually used for charity in the East District, forget it. Alice was right about one thing. Little Maynard had no intention of doing charity, and neither did Shah-Ir. The funds in his hands will definitely be used to purchase extraordinary materials first. Are you willing to believe in my Lord? I've told you before, the sun has many powers. As long as you believe in my Lord, I will teach you the ritual magic of praying to the Lord for free. Alice thought for a moment and asked. Dream. Shah-Ir refused directly. If he wanted to believe, he should believe in the strongest one. Did the eternal sun give him eggs? Did he want him to believe? I won't embarrass you. If you praise the sun, I may consider helping you for free in the future. Only occasionally. I need to eat too. Alice gritted her teeth and said with some heartache. Oh, you want me to betray the goddess? You're dreaming. Shah-Ir drew a crimson moon on his chest and said with a firm attitude. I'm not asking you to betray your faith. If you praise the sun, I'll give you a bottle of holy water for free. How about that? Alice throws the chips again. Ha, if you praise the goddess, I'll give you 100 pounds. Shah-Ir rolled his eyes in disdain. The two looked at each other and Chi-Chi said. You pagan. ×2. Master, Miss Alice, I will arrange for the servants to prepare the food. Martin stood up and saluted the two of them, then quickly walked into the villa. Eat something before you go. Shah-Ir had almost reached the door of his home, and he asked the blonde girl who was still following him. The sun will bless you. Alice made the same gesture that the mendicant monks of the Church of the Eternal Blazing Eye would make when expressing gratitude, and then she touched her hungry stomach. The moon will bless you too. Shah-Ir nodded his chest 4 times, then took Alice into the villa. Martin had already arranged for the servants to prepare some food quickly. After he ate a small cake, he looked at Alice who was still stuffing fruit pudding into her mouth, and stood up and said. I'm going to go back and rest first. You're my friend, you're welcome. Martin, you don't have to worry about her. Go and have a rest. Just arrange for the servants on duty to take care of her. Shah-Ir said and walked towards the stairs. Martin, go and rest. Don't worry about me. Oh, by the way, this place is so big, it should be enough for me to rest for a night, right? Alice touched her belly contentedly, then looked at Martin and asked. She didn't want to walk back now that she was full. Of course, don't worry, Miss Alice, a maid will take you to the guest room later. Martin was also a little tired, but he still completed the aftermath work diligently. Bedroom. Shah sat in front of the mirror and closed his eyes. In his personal island of mind, he smiled as he watched the evil spirit Steve struggling in fear in the mirror. It turns out that you still need to make a nest before fishing. The holy light summoned by Alice can protect against long-range possession by resentful spirits to a certain extent. The approach of the Mechanical Heart team forced the wraiths who came to support them to quickly resolve the problem and clear all traces in the field. At this time, just control your position, just outside Alice and Martin's field of vision, and wait at the edge of the holy light. Countless Yuanying monsters in history have proven how dangerous it is to possess a time traveler. You don't need to be nervous or scared. There's nothing difficult to understand. In fact, most of the secret praying people are like this. I am still a conservative one among them. You didn't see the projection of the real creator in my spiritual world, but only saw a mirror. Isn't that lucky? Shah explained with a smile. This is how the secret prayer is played, mastering sacrifice and ritual magic, and being proficient in the art of shaking people. The ghost Steve in the mirror had a brighter glow in his eyes. He opened his mouth to let out a soul-piercing scream, but a song rang in his ears first. As time goes by, the old man is no longer in the cold lonely grave. The high mountains and flowing water are only for you. The lingering song of the broken dream will never be played again. The elf's singing echoing in the mirror completely drowned out the increasingly shrill screams of the resentful spirit. Shah retreated far away, his spiritual world under his control. Layers of air walls blocked the screaming sound coming from the mirror. Before long, the fear and madness in the eyes of the resentful soul gradually turned into numbness and dullness. The audience's methods are really shady. This way, I have a spiritual being that can respond to me. Shah looked at his work and nodded with satisfaction. What the secret praying people fear most is the lack of organization, and they don't even know who to sacrifice to. It is a little difficult for Sequence 5 to respond to prayers. But as long as the distance is close enough, the secret praying person can still get a response. Is this the principle of the humanoid seal? He snapped his fingers, and the mirror disappeared, leaving only a portrait of the resentful soul, which automatically emerged on the sacrificial altar in the spiritual world. Shah inserted 3 incense sticks into the incense burner, and various paper money, paper figures, and paper gold ingots appeared. The spiritual flame ignited these things, and these sacrificial materials turned into tiny dots of firefly and dissipated, turning into real things in the dream that the resentful soul could not extricate himself from. The vengeful spirit who came from the hedonistic sect could not resist the temptation of the world. He began to enjoy the sacrifices offered by Shah to his heart's content, and thus completed a secret mystical ceremony with Shah. Then, please the God to possess you. You can't just eat the tribute without working, right? Shah looked at the 3 sandalwood sticks that were burning quickly. It seemed that the resentful spirit liked the smell very much. He pointed toward the portrait hanging on the altar. His spirit changed into the same black tuxedo and dark red cape as the wronged ghost Steve. In the real world, Shah opened his eyes, and his body began to float up and down, turning into a ghostly shadow like a resentful spirit. His palm passed in front of him, and his face began to change, turning into an expressionless middle-aged man in his 40s. Not only has his appearance changed, but even his aura is consistent with that of the evil spirit Steve. Rhodes, create a mirror image of me sleeping in my room. And help me locate the temporary base of the hedonist cult in Backland. It was Shah first time as a vengeful spirit, and he couldn't wait to go out and play. Okay, Shale. Rhodes sent information to Shah directly through spiritual revelation. Anyway, the resentful souls can communicate directly with the spirit world. It first created a mirror double for Shah and then directly located the current position of the 2 members of the hedonistic faction. The passive anti-divination abilities of werewolves and zombies were no different from non-existence to erodes. After erodes connected the mirror in Shael's room to a mirror in the East District, Shael flashed through the mirror and jumped over a base in the East District. Zombie, Jason and werewolf, Tyr are waiting here. Because Shael did not provide assistance, the Sequence 7 werewolf has not yet been arrested by the mechanical heart. The hedonistic trio is led by a Sequence 3 saint. At this time, Tyr, who looked thin but was actually very strong, tore open the flesh of the part where he was shot. He stretched out his nails and removed the bullet inside. The sacred aura on the bullet that could not stick to it for a long time was also eroded and erased by the dark magic mastered by the werewolf. Shael's illusory figure appeared through the mirror in the room like a ghost. Tile, I need an explanation. How could you be so useless that you were made into this state by those three guys? The first thing Shael did when he showed up was to cause trouble. The other party has a Sunpath Extraordinary, and a Sunpath Seal. The other two were also carrying large caliber firearms. When werewolf Tyr saw his boss coming back, he told him the reason he had prepared long ago. You've passed this time. Shael snorted lightly and walked to a chair and sat down. Master Zartwin has left. Jason, a pale-faced zombie of Sequence 6, respectfully presented an item. It was a gorgeous crown shaped like a full moon, inlaid with scarlet gems all around, and engraved with moon runes and mysterious symbols. This is the Level 2 sealed artifact corresponding to the Moon Path Sequence 5 Crimson Scholar, the Crimson Moon Corona. You continue to hold it. Without this seal, you won't even be able to wait for my support if you encounter Sharon. Did Master Zatwin give any instructions before he left? Shael took a look at the sealed object, then looked away and asked. His fingers tapped lightly on the armrest of the chair. If Steve had brought this seal with him, he might not have fallen into Shael's hands so easily. Unfortunately, Steve was an experienced Sequence 5 warrior. There was no problem with his resource allocation and combat experience. He just encountered someone who had no martial ethics. Lord Zartwin only asked us to continue to capture the remnants of the Temperance faction. When the zombie Jason saw that the boss had no intention of taking back the Crimson Moon Corona, he hurriedly put away the palm-sized seal and used his spiritual power to set up a blockade. Although this Level 2 seal is powerful, its negative effects are no joke. When Shael saw that the zombie Jason didn't know the whereabouts of the Saint of the Rose School, he nodded nonchalantly. There is no need for saints to report their itinerary to the middle sequence. If this saint was intent on capturing Sharon and Marich, would Steve and the other two have to chase them all the way from West Balam to Backland? Sir, why don't you just kill those three guys? Werewolf, Tell asked confused. He originally thought that his boss would deal with the three people after completing the possession, but he ended up shooting himself. We came to Backland to capture Sharon and Marich. Those three people are obviously related to the nobles and the Orthodox Church. The boy I possessed also carried a copy of the Holy Scripture of the Night. They are not dead. It's just that the mechanical heart is searching for you. If they can't find any clues for a long time, they will give up and guess that you have left Backland or hidden in other areas that are not under the jurisdiction of the mechanical heart. If they die, my existence will be exposed. A Sequence 5 is enough to attract the attention of the Orthodox Church. The nobles will also continue to ask the Orthodox Church to arrest us. It's easier for us to hide, but Sharon and Marich will get more breathing time. Shael briefly explained the difference between cracking down on gangs and counterterrorism. If only civilians died, after a while no one would care about it. Their families will grieve but be powerless to do anything. The survival pressure they face does not leave them much time to grieve the departure of their loved ones. If it was little Maynard who died, then his family would visit the Church of Night every now and then. It's helpless, but it's reality. My lord, I understand. Werewolf, Tyr nodded. He didn't care about being noble or not, but he knew clearly what he was doing on this trip. Backland doesn't have freedom of the sea after all. Zombie, Jason also had no objection. He also didn't want to be chased by the Orthodox Church. I don't know when that guy senior will be killed and exchanged for a bounty. He's dead, and we just happened to take over his fleet. Shah-Ir cursed his colleague to die early in front of his 2 subordinates. 42,000 pounds, such a huge bounty, I am a little tempted. Zombie, Jason licked his lips. He was also greedy for the bounty and the extraordinary characteristics of the Blood Admiral. The werewolf, Tyre, was not as strong. He didn't say anything, just nodded. He was also greedy. The workplace relationships within the hedonistic group are so healthy and natural. Tell me about our future plans. Although Sharon and Marich are not strong and do not know how to use the power of desire, their anti-divination ability is equally troublesome. We can't just chase them and do nothing else. Shah-Ir knocked on the armrest of the chair twice, motioning them to look over. They can't fight, but they can run. My lord, do you have any instructions? It's getting annoying for us to keep chasing them. Zombie, Jason and werewolf, Tyr both looked at Shah-Ir. They had been chasing him all the way and were quite annoyed. It is not convenient for Tyr to continue to operate in the Bridge District. Jason, you and Tyr go to the East District. That's the territory that the Storm Church's mandated Punisher is in charge of. It's difficult for the mechanical heart to bypass the mandated Punisher and search for you in the East District. Don't just sit there, find something to do. There is a gang in the East District that mainly engages in prostitution and other black businesses. I remember it was called the Hilly Gang. Get rid of the leader of this gang and take over their territory and business. We also need some scum who can help run errands and be sacrificed at any time. When the full moon comes, the flesh and souls of these scum will also please us. No one would care if the East Side thugs disappeared. The worse it is, the stronger the desire is, and the more delicious the taste is. Shah-Ir thought for a moment and said. He planned to dump these 2 hedonistic guys in the East District to eat food scraps. Leave it to us, my lord. Zombie, Jason and werewolf, Tyr agreed without any hesitation. They didn't dare to disobey Shah-Ir's order in the first place, not to mention that the order itself was in line with their tastes. Remember these points. First, take over the Hilly party quickly without causing too much unrest and attracting official attention. Second, you can appropriately expand the blocks under your control, but it must be done in moderation. Too much territory will only bring us trouble and is meaningless. Third, you can fight with other gangs if you want, but you can only fight with gangs. Don't expose your strength easily, and don't cause too much riots in the streets controlled by you or other gangs. Gang matters stay with gangs. Don't prevent the residents of the East District from going to work normally. If they don't go to work, they will starve to death. We are not members of the spiritual cult. Too many dead people are of no value to us. Fourth, if we collect protection fees in the neighborhood, we can maintain public order. We can plant a long-term and stable gang organization in Backland, which will be mainly responsible for collecting various intelligence instead of plundering the pockets of the poor for a few copper coins. You don't lack that kind of stuff. Shah-Ir first outlined 4 basic rules. When Zombie, Jason and werewolf, Tyson heard what their boss said, neither of them had any objections. Sir, do you intend to run the Hilly Party as an intelligence organization and long-term base? Zombie, Jason thought for a moment and asked. That's right. We came to Backland and we have to leave something behind. Shah-Ir nodded. Since these 2 guys were so obedient, he didn't have to let them experience the feeling of suffocation first. As long as we don't disrupt the order of the East District or the conflicts between gangs, the officials of Lowen will basically ignore us. Werewolf, Tyr also has some understanding of the Lowen officials. He thought this was not a bad idea. He recruited a gang involved in selling silver and other businesses. If he wanted to kill someone, he could just join the gang fight. If he wanted to have fun, he wouldn't have to look for a place. Moreover, they can ask gang members to collect information for them, which is much better than running around looking for Marich every day. Since you have no objections, I will add a few more points. Shah-Ir understood the leader's unique ability of talking nonsense without any instruction. Those girls earn money to survive, and they will give a share of the money to the gangs. I don't mind you having sex with them, but if you can't control yourself and want to kill, maim or injure them, then I will teach you a lesson you will never forget. You know my methods. If you are here to cause trouble, or if you want to hurt our girl on purpose, drag them out. I don't need to teach you what to do. If you want to make some money, then try to earn some from outsiders instead of our own people. How can you expect a group of girls who have trouble getting enough to eat and supporting their families to have any money? How can they come up with a few pennies? To some extent, those girls are our property. If we exploit them, they won't have enough to eat and will become as thin as sticks. Would you be interested? Shah guided these members of the hedonistic sect to change the way they think. Instead of exploiting our own people, we should think about how to exploit outsiders more and provide benefits to our own people. For example, those who come here are forced to buy sanitary protection products, and those who don't want to buy them have to pay 5 times the price. Shah knew that what he was doing now might be condoning crime. But it doesn't matter. He can't change the world, or the living environment of some disadvantaged groups in a few blocks. He can. Can you make money by selling sex in the East District? Do you think that little money is worth it? If you want to earn more, then try to transform and use our channels, such as selling goods, intermediaries, housekeeping. We earn money for them, so we need to protect them and help them solve some problems. Those of you who send us money can think of all kinds of tricks and don't have to worry about not having business. Gangs don't have to follow the rules. If you have a sequence 6 and a sequence 7, and you can't even handle a gang, then just go back to the South Continent as soon as possible and stop embarrassing yourself by following me. The green in Shah's eyes became more intense. He was not a fool and could not solve the problem by making a wish. He couldn't build a factory in 7 days, house those women, and guarantee their treatment. He could not change the system of the Kingdom of Loan in a month and fundamentally solve these problems. He would not take out loans for a group of unrelated people to satisfy their meaningless kindness. He just does what he can. A few words can affect several blocks and the livelihoods of hundreds of people. Why not say a few more words? Within 3 days, the Nightingales of the Hilly party will be able to complete their original work more easily, bring home more bread, their living environment will be improved the fastest, and they will have opportunities for transformation in the future. Shah was just helping out. He didn't owe these strangers anything, and no one should try to morally blackmail him. Sir, we agree to everything else. But, sometimes, we may not be able to control ourselves. Zombie, Jason said stiffly, looking at the faint light in Shah's eyes. Jason absolutely supports Shah's idea of exploiting outsiders and providing benefits to his own people. Although he did not consider these Loan people as his own, the boss had the biggest fist and his words were the truth. The boss disdained to exploit those prostitutes, and he did not dare to object. However, those of them who were in the indulgent faction sometimes really could not control themselves. Werewolf, Tyr was more direct. My lord, our strength might tear them apart if we're not careful. When Shah saw the two people's reactions, he was not angry, but slowly stood up from his chair. During the full moon, I will watch you, or you can go somewhere else and find guys who are also craving sin and desire at night and tear them apart. Normally, if you tear a nightingale to pieces, I will sacrifice your blood. With your ability to recover, you won't die even if your skin is peeled off, and you will recover after a while. As long as you have fear in your heart, I believe you will resist the desire in your heart. If you don't obey, I will use your characteristics to replace you with someone who obeys. He slowly raised his hand, and the skin of the two dark creatures, the zombie and the werewolf, showed signs of decay. This is just a warning. Master, Steve, we will comply with your request. But I don't understand why you would. Aren't we a hedonist? Werewolf, Tyson looked at Steve in confusion. You deserve to be a sequence 7. Jason, do you need my answers too? Shah cursed the werewolf and then looked at the zombie, Jason. Sir, do you want us to exercise some restraint while indulging ourselves in order to reduce the risk of losing control and becoming inhumane? Zombie, Jason saw Shal-Ir testing him, and he tried to guess what Shal-I was thinking and said. Yes, the Temperance faction is just stupid, but they gave birth to angels after all, so they are not completely useless. When the moon is full, if the Temperance faction chooses to suppress, they will lose their power. If we choose to indulge, we will become monsters. If you become a vengeful spirit too many times, there is a high possibility that on a full moon, you will become a real vengeful spirit and lose everything you have. That idiot senior, don't think he's in such a good position now. If he's promoted to a demigod, he'll probably lose control. The core of the hedonistic faction is not to completely indulge in desires, but to use the power of desires and learn to control them. If you are completely eroded by desires, turn into a monster, and lose your humanity, then what is the fun of living? Do you want to become a corpse controlled by you or a monster transformed by a werewolf? Shal-Ir looked at the two men and asked. The two men looked at each other and understood what the other was thinking, which was that the boss was in a bad mood and it would be best not to cause trouble. The big boss is competing with the Blood Admiral for the chance to be promoted to demigod. If they dare to say that the Blood Admiral's indulgent way is better, they will definitely be beaten to death by the big boss. After establishing the basic understanding that the boss was right, the two began to reflect on their lives over the years. Werewolf, Tyr also discovered that the zombie, Jason was promoted faster, which seemed to make sense in this regard. The two men took one look at the dead body lying on the ground, which could be manipulated at will, and thought of their own confusion during the full moon, and they couldn't help but feel a little scared. They haven't lived enough. Who wants to become such a monster? Anyway, the boss doesn't forbid them to enjoy themselves, so for the sake of their own lives, they should try to restrain themselves when indulging themselves. If you don't mind, then go away. If you have any opinions, raise them now. Shal-Ir switched back to the form of a vengeful spirit, his figure disappeared, leaving only his voice echoing in the room. If a Sequence 6 and a Sequence 7 are still unable to establish some rules for a black industry in the East District, then just die early. What's the point of keeping such a useless person alive? Wait, my lord. Jason spoke first, and then his throat was grasped by a ghost hand and he was lifted into the air like a hanged ghost. Sir, we have no objection. We agree. We just want to ask, what about you? You won't join us. When Telephone saw that Jason was drooling but didn't dare to struggle with all his strength for fear of getting beaten again, he quickly helped to explain. Do your job well. You can contact me if you need anything. Following you guys, chasing after Sharon is a waste of time. When will I find an opportunity? Jason fell from the sky and Telephone quickly caught him. Now they didn't dare to ask the boss what he was doing. They didn't dare to ask about Lord Zadwin's itinerary, so would they dare to ask about Lord Steve's itinerary? Lord Steve will really skin them and make a blood sacrifice. This is a pilot project for me to cultivate my faith. If you dare to mess it up, you'll be dead. The voice coming from the void dispelled Jason and Tyr's last doubts. As expected of an adult, you are so wise and resourceful. 49 Sivlas Street, West End. Shal-Ir jumped through the mirror and returned to the villa he rented in the West District, which was not too far from the Sodlik Palace of the Lowen royal family. If a roads hadn't directly connected the two mirrors, Shal-Ir really wouldn't dare to frequently use the mirror to jump in this area. The judge's path has a strong sense of the area it rules. Welcome back, Shal-Ir. Rhodes sent an elven rune through the spirit world to express his warm welcome. Well, thank you for your hard work. Shal-Ir removed the ghost possession, just like taking off clothes, and turned back into a newbie secret praying person of Sequence 9. He didn't kill the two people from the hedonistic faction because the characteristics of werewolves and zombies were useless and could only be sold for some money. It would be better to let the characteristics of these two guys play a better role. After taking over part of the savings of the Wraith Steve, Shal-Ir's wallet was filled again. There is no such thing as poverty for a Sequence 5. At least it was enough for his pocket money for a while. Start the evening prayer today and then go to sleep. Lord of all creation, omniscient and almighty God, you are. After acting for a while, Shah went straight to bed. Sometimes he even forgot what role he was playing. It was probably a secret praying man, a mindless prayer machine that could pray to anyone. The next day, Alice had another free breakfast. Shah then remembered that he had driven the two-member hedonistic group to the East District, and Alice lived in the East District in order to save money and facilitate missionary work. He didn't care about this before. Alice, tell me, is there a possibility that the werewolf who escaped last night will find a chance to take revenge on you? Shah knew that this kind of thing would hardly happen with him around, but he still tried to scare the little girl. He dares to try. I did pass the Inquisition test, but I didn't go in the end. Alice narrowed her eyes upon hearing this. Backland wasn't the only Beander in the Church of the Eternal Sun. She was just the youngest one. If anyone dared to cause trouble for her, she would just beat them up. So, you know that the East District is the territory of the mandated punishers, so why do you keep going to the East District? Shah found it very interesting. Both the Church of the Eternal Sun and the Society of the Aurora like to send people to the East District. Even he himself was sending people to the East District. You are not happy with me preaching in the North District where the Nighthawks are in charge. The people living in the East District are the ones who need the sun the most. What's the use of the Church of Storms? They can't even blow away the smog in Backland. Alice glanced at Shah and very naturally belittled the Storm Church. Then, as if sharing a secret, she looked around and leaned close to Shah's ear and said, "Besides, don't you think it would be more fulfilling to convert the believers who originally believed in the Lord of Storms to believe in my Lord? NTR. Do you understand this too?" Shah was shocked. Can faith be played like this? This is a bit twisted, isn't it? Oh, no, you really have faith. Okay, I'm going to go preach. Let Martin come to me if you need anything. Alice thought about preaching, so she jumped off her chair and prepared to leave in a hurry. Wait a minute, you don't even know Loan, how can you preach? Shah pulled the blonde girl and asked curiously. Who said I can't? Praise the sun, Rune. Alice smiled confidently. What a nice day, in Lonis. Shah replied. Praise the sun, Rune. Alice repeated. Is this the only sentence you learned? So your position among your colleagues is a mascot, right? Shah understood, so the mascot should be treated in a certain way. He took out a few candies and put them in Alice's pocket. You can eat them on the way. Thank you for your contribution to the development of the Church of the Eternal Sun. Alice said something that made Shah's expression stiffen a little, and then she ran away at the speed of light. Master, Viscount Glint's family holds a cultural salon as usual. Do you want to attend? Martin stepped forward and asked. Go ahead, why not? Shah planned to continue slacking off and then wait for the night watchman to come and check the gas meter. If you don't come, then continue to go to school. Night. Shah's spirit was touched, and he was pulled directly into the dream world, appearing in the solemn and majestic street. Samuel's church. He was wearing a black and red clergy robe, holding Apocalypse of the Night in his arms, and looking at the familiar-looking gentleman in front of him with a slightly dazed look. He was also wearing a clergyman's robe, about 40 years old, with deep blue eyes and a thin face, looking very comfortable. Bishop Electra. Is this the value of connections? To investigate other possible wild beyonders, we can send a Sequence 7 nightmare to go through the process, and then he can move up to Sequence 5 when it's his turn. The mechanical heart explained your situation to us. You became a Beander. Bishop Electra asked. Yes, you know, the ingredients for a Sequence 9 potion are not expensive. Shah didn't expect the bishop to be so direct, so he just said it straight away. You want to become an extraordinary person, why don't you go through the channels of the church? Bishop Electra's voice was slightly reproachful. My mother just wanted me to join the church, but she didn't want me to join the Nighthawks. Shah spread his hands helplessly. This is also true. As the backbone of the new party, the Maynard family is not short of money and is not too keen on letting their children join the Night Watchers. In fact, although it is not stated explicitly, the majority of the Night Watchers are ordinary believers. These Night followers of ordinary origin joined the Night Watchers, accumulated merits, and gained promotions and improved social status. There were not many children of nobles who joined the church, let alone starting from the grassroots. Not to mention the dangerous Night Watchmen. They first served as assistants to priests who were close to the nobles, and then contributed to the daily running of the church. As long as they join the church, these people have plenty of opportunities to become extraordinary people since they are not short of money. According to the original development path, after graduation, Shah-Ir would first take up a noble clerical job in St. Samuel's Church. After officially joining the Church of Evernight, you don't need to go to the grassroots level to get involved in more things before considering the issue of promotion to extraordinary status. You couldn't help it. Bishop Electra asked somewhat helplessly. I just wanted to mix potions for fun, just as a practice. Shah-Ir felt helpless as he looked at the bishop's helpless expression. Why did he feel like he had eaten the forbidden fruit? The singer. The little girl from the Eternal Sun Church who sold you the potion formula and ingredients. Bishop Electra had almost accepted it by this time. He knew that the prepared potion was magical to ordinary people and would tempt the creatures around them to drink it. No, it wasn't. I held back the first time. I fed it to my pet. Unfortunately, it didn't come back to life. Shah-Ir mourned the death of the sun dog and drew a crimson moon on his chest. There's a second time. Bishop Electra raised his brows, having a bad feeling. Yes, the secret prayer man. Shah-Ir tried to slow down his tone, but he could still hear people gasping for air. Mr. Maynard, don't tell me that you have become a secret praying person. Bishop Electra felt it was extremely absurd to see the successor he had intended to train go astray, and he felt a sense of disappointment in his heart. As long as little Maynard didn't mess around, it was almost certain that he would become the bishop of St. Samuel Parish in Backland in the future. Maynard Jr.'s grandfather, the new party boss, has already established connections. As a result, the young nobleman failed to start his own business and was instead abducted into a cult. What should he do? Yes, just a few days ago. Shah-Ir nodded, and out of the corner of his eye he noticed that the bishop's fists were clenched. Bishop Electra tried to take a few deep breaths, as she was almost angered to death by Shah-Ir. He had actually been paying attention to Shah-Ir, but after Shah-Ir moved to the West District to live independently, the distance was quite far. In addition, when he visited Congressman Matcht's home a few days ago, he heard that Congressman Matcht was worried about his daughter's problem, so he told him about the student he had planned to study with. The two of them hit it off immediately and have been communicating their intentions with Mrs. Maynard and others over the past few days. They even sent out invitations a week in advance, intending to let the two of them get along first. So you secretly drank the magic potion of the mysterious praying man while I was arranging a blind date for you. At this moment, Bishop Electra suddenly felt how right she was to not have children. If this were his own child, he would definitely be pissed to death. Mr. Maynard, do you know what the secret prayer potion means? Bishop Electra took a deep breath, and his tone became stern. Bishop Electra, I know that the name of the potion basically corresponds to the properties of the potion. A secret praying person, I think it's okay, not a werewolf or anything like that. Since becoming a secret praying person, I can feel the deep, engraved in my heart, the tranquility and beauty of the night every time I pray to the goddess. A certain part-time audience member continued to tug at the bishop's emotions. Is this how you understand the secret praying people? Bishop Electra wanted to continue scolding, but was stopped by Shah-Ir's words, a secret worshipper who believes in the goddess. Have you been praying to the goddess since you became a secret praying person? Bishop Electra asked with a complicated look in her eyes. Yeah, what's the problem? Shah-Ir asked while holding Apocalypse of Night. He didn't actually pray, but he praised the goddess every day because he was surrounded by believers of the night. How to go to Tingen City without preparing a case in advance? Anyway, the goddess of night is a master at pretending to be confused. Whether she saw it or not, she didn't see it. He also has the positive buff of, remnant of the old ones. Of course, the most important thing is that the cat of the goddess of night is in his hands. The goddess of night wants to see her cat return to its nest safely, so she shouldn't ruin Sha'ir's plans. You didn't pray to the true creator. Bishop Electra looked Sha'ir up and down as if he was looking at some magical animal. I was taught in seminary not to pray to anyone other than the goddess. Sha'ir said seriously. He is a true believer of the night. How could I betray my beliefs? He has no faith at all. Sha'ir said with a firm look in his eyes. What do you think of the true creator? Bishop Electra continued to ask. Evil God. Sha'ir thought for a moment and said. This child can still say bad things about the real creator, it seems there is still hope. Bishop Electra felt a little relieved. The members of the Aurora Society were all fanatics. They would never say that the Lord they believed in was an evil god. How do you think the true creator compares to the goddess? Bishop Electra continued to ask. Why don't you compare the Lord of Storms with the true creator? Did the goddess not answer your prayers? Or did she give you nightmares at night? How dare you say such words? Sha'ir showed a dissatisfied expression as if to say, how could you do this? How dare you talk back? You said goddess is not okay. The two people looked at each other. You kid. Bishop Electra finally smiled. I will pray to the goddess later and use her power to detect whether you are contaminated. This is also an important test that will determine your future. Do you understand? Although he was generally relieved, as the bishop of the church he still had to go through the process. Please. Sha'ir was very calm. This world is so troublesome. If you want to do something in Backland, you must have the background of one of the three major churches or the royal family. If you want to go to Tingen, you can't avoid being noticed. If he wanted to get 008, he should at least say hello first to give the girl some mental preparation. Even if the woman disagrees. No eraser warning either. Even if I can't agree to it half-heartedly, at least I don't have to sing, tears behind bars. Goddess of the night, who is higher than the stars and longer than eternity, you are the Lord of Crimson, the Mother of Secrets, the Queen of Disaster and Fear, the Lord of Sleep and Silence. Bishop Electra performed a ritual magic in her dream to pray to the Goddess of Night. The crimson moonlight shone on Sha'ir's body. Sha'ir's spiritual island was like a mirror. The moonlight shone on it, causing ripples. There was nothing abnormal in his spiritual world. The preset power close to the angel level avoided the automatic response scrutiny of the gods. Bishop Electra, is it okay? Sha'ir looked at the bishop and asked. He had anticipated this situation. He and the goddess of night have no grudge against each other now. This is the character of the goddess of night. She does her job as a routine and does not target you. If you can avoid the scrutiny of the Church of Night, it is your ability. She is not a stickler at all. The question is that the ritual magic of Sequence 5 is all automatic spiritual recovery, and it is impossible for the gods to pay close attention to every believer who prays to him for power. The question is that mid-sequence thieves can disguise themselves as believers of gods to steal automatic replies and create corresponding talismans. What's more, Sha'ir was well prepared. Yeah, that's fine, no problem for you. Bishop Electra also smiled. If it wasn't necessary, he really didn't want to make things difficult for his beloved successor. The intelligence of the mechanical heart is relatively detailed. Having just become a Beander, he dared to cooperate with a low sequence to fight against a powerful werewolf. This performance is already very good. Of course I have no problem. The goddess will protect me. Praise the goddess. Sha'ir drew a crimson moon on his chest. You are blessed by the goddess for not being polluted. Praise the goddess. Bishop Electra also drew a crimson moon on her chest. I will report your case to Archbishop Anthony. I'm afraid it will be impossible for you to continue attending classes at the seminary. Although you are not contaminated, you have become an extraordinary person, so you must keep some distance from ordinary students. What are your plans for the future? Maybe I can help you get them. Bishop Electra was not willing to give up Sha'ir completely. He was still thinking about helping Sha'ir plan a new path. Let me think about it. I don't want to join the nightwatchman on daily patrols. It doesn't seem like it would be a good idea to continue to be a priest's assistant and study with him. Are there any other interesting and free positions in the church? Shah did not behave politely with Bishop Electra, since the bishop seemed to have a good relationship with the Maynard family. I don't know what to say to you. Okay, wait for my notification. Bishop Electra rubbed his brows. He thought about how he had already praised this student to Congressman Matched about how outstanding he was. Now he really couldn't ignore him, otherwise he would lose face. The internal review of the Church of Night has been temporarily concluded. Bishop Electra left Shale's dream. Shah looked at the holy emblem of the night with satisfaction, which was dotted with stars and had a crimson background above his head. This is perfect. I graduated early and was admitted to church. Join a public institution and enjoy a lazy life. There are two major difficulties in life: employment has been solved, and marriage is not important. Just keep playing badly. The fifth era is not suitable for struggle. The dividends of the era are long gone. He just needs to work hard in the fourth era. Shah clapped his hands, his dream shattered, and he returned to a comfortable sleep. Monday, 3 p.m. Shah leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. He thought about how to persuade his past self that first bitterness comes before sweetness is the golden rule of life. In the morning, Shah went to the night seminary to receive his early graduation certificate and a letter of recommendation to join St. Samuel's Cathedral. Although Martin was even more excited than him and planned to hold a party in the villa. But not having to go to school is always something to celebrate. Besides, the money for the banquet would be paid by the Maynard family, so Shah's pocket money would not be touched, so he didn't care. The deep red light surged like a tide. Shah opened his eyes again and he was already above the gray fog again. The girl's cheerful greeting came to my ears. Good afternoon, Mr. Fool. Shah felt the gazes on him, and he turned to look at the fool. Has he learned the power of clairvoyance? Good afternoon, Mr. Angel. Justice, Audrey greeted Shah. Good afternoon, Miss Justice. Shah withdrew his gaze from the fool and replied politely. After a simple greeting, Klein tapped his brows lightly, and used the clairvoyance he had just learned to observe the aura colors of the three people below. Miss Justice's emotional colors are red and yellow, representing passion and excitement. Mr. the Hanged Man's emotions are mainly blue with a little orange, representing calmness and a little satisfaction. Deep in the etheric body you can also see deep blue like seawater. Does this represent the path of the storm? Mr. Angel's emotions are mainly purple, with some green. Klein recalled the knowledge taught by old Professor Neil. Purple represents spirituality, coldness and alienation, while green represents calmness and peace. Is this a bystander mentality? When he wanted to continue observing the innermost layer of Mr. Angel's aura, he only saw a curtain-like shadow. Coincidentally, the other party also turned his head to look over at this time, so Klein had no choice but to nod in response and naturally looked away. Mr. Hanged Man, did you receive the ghost shark's blood? Justice, Audrey asked while looking at the Hanged Man, Alger. It's very good quality. I didn't expect you to get it so soon. Alger nodded. He might have underestimated Miss Justice's family background before. The blood of the ghost shark was still very precious. As long as you are satisfied. Justice, Audrey smiled indifferently, she took it from the treasure house at home anyway. Ms. Justice, congratulations on becoming a spectator. Shah turned his head to look at the mind dragon symbol behind Audrey. Well, Mr. Angel, I want to share this good news with myself. Audrey gave Shah a resentful look. She had also seen the symbol on the back of his chair last time, so she had no reason to blame Shah's behavior this time. After taking a subconscious look, Audrey hesitated and said uncertainly, Mr. Angel, was your last mysterious pattern like this? Audrey looked at the shadow flowing on the back of Shah's chair and wondered. Miss Justice, you are not mistaken, the symbol behind the angel last time was an eye, and now this eye is covered with a shadow. Klein thought so while sitting on the main seat. This is normal, right? No one has ever stipulated that extraordinary people cannot master more supernatural powers. Shah-Ir withdrew his gaze and began to talk nonsense. You upgraded your sequence? Alger asked tentatively. Because of the angle, Alger, who was sitting on the other side, couldn't see behind Shah-Ir. I guess so. I learned some more about the mysterious side. Shah-Ir said calmly. In the past few days, he extracted everything from the memory of the ghost Steve. Study. Mr. Angel, when you say learning, do you mean learning how to use the power brought by the potion? Audrey thought about herself, who had just become an audience member and knew nothing at this time, so she asked quickly. Just some knowledge about sacrifice and ritual magic. Shah-Ir didn't want to talk more. Was he going to teach the members of the Tarot Club how to pray for power from the Mother Tree of Desire? Miss Justice, after becoming a Beander, all you have to do is practice every day and master the true power of the potion. The extraordinary materials used to prepare the potion have spiritual residues. Only by improving your own spirit, controlling your spirituality, and digging out the symbolism and meaning of the potion can you avoid danger to the greatest extent. Alger was more enthusiastic than Shah-Ir. After all, he was the one who led Justice onto the path of transcendence, and he did not hide his teachings at this time. The story of the old folks is coming, Shah-Ir thought to himself. It's not about mastering, but digesting, it's not about digging, but about acting. Mr. Fool revealed the role-playing method to the two. Audrey was confused, Alger was struck by lightning, and Shah-Ir hurriedly worked hard to Pua himself in the fourth era. He traced the luck rune with his fingers under the table. Since consciousness can rely on the crimson star to stay connected across time and space, can it also deliver express? He secretly sacrificed the chanter's dog chain contained in the spirit to his fourth age self through the connection of the crimson star. Digest, act. I see. Thank you, Mr. Fool. After Alger figured out how to act, he expressed his gratitude. The Fool Klein was very satisfied with the reactions of the three people. He was silent, she was confused, and he was excited. Wouldn't the mysterious image of the Fool be established in this way? This is advance payment, the Fool said with a smile. Mr. Fool, what do you want us to do for you? Audrey still didn't understand, but she knew it was a valuable hint, so she asked while thinking about it. I need you to help me collect Russell's diary, even if it's just one page. Klein glanced to both sides and said, leaning back in his chair. Emperor Russell's diary. Is that a diary? Son. Audrey was amazed at Mr. Fool's level, Alger began to doubt, and Shah-Ir's throat was a little smoking. He ate another portion of the singer's trait. If madness didn't require a little accumulation, Shah-Ir was afraid that he would kick the bronze table out of reflex. Who could tell him why the sacrifice failed, but why the seal was shattered directly? Before attending the Tarot Club this time, Shah-Ir made sufficient preparations. He first used sacrifice and ritual magic to borrow the ability of the resentful souls to transform into spirit form. Then contain the seal formed by combining the characteristics of the singer. After arriving above the gray fog, according to the plan, he decided to use the crimson star to help connect the characteristics of the fourth age and the fifth age in this place independent of the historical fog of the real world, and bestow the lowest level seal that can contain the spirit on his past self. The experiment ended in failure. The seal in Shah-Ir's body failed to travel through time and return to the past. Instead, it was shattered by a certain force, turned into fragments, and began to condense into extraordinary characteristics again. Unfortunately, in order to hide, Shah-Ir did not remove the seal from his body, and these characteristic fragments were not recondensed and were absorbed by his spiritual body. What use do I have for this singer's trait? Shah-Ir wanted to praise the sun. The Emperor of Intis, the kingdom of the sun, Russell the Great. Shah-Ir said with a light cough. This is the first emperor of the fifth era. Although he wanted to complain more about the Sun Wei's lack of martial ethics, cheating, seducing, and attacking him, a secret praying person. Yes, this is the person. I want you to collect his diary, tentatively called the diary. Fool, Klein smiled. I heard that this kind of diary was written by Emperor Russell using mysterious characters or symbols he invented. Justice Audrey asked. Yes, so far no one has found the correct way to interpret it, at least that's what I know. But this, fool, seemed to be able to understand. Alger glanced at the fool with some doubt. Emperor Russell still has descendants alive. Even the steam church cannot decipher these diaries. This can only mean that Emperor Russell left these diaries for other purposes. It's actually a good thing that it can't be interpreted. Knowledge also has weight, Shah said casually. He paid more attention to the experiment just now. His experiment was not a complete failure, but only half a failure. He did send a sealed object to the fourth age, although it was not the one he had already contained and absorbed. But it's a good start, right? The speaker may not mean it, but the listener may take it seriously. When Klein heard the information provided by Shah, he instantly realized that Russell's diary might really have been left for the same time traveler. How did Russell know there would be a second time traveler? Suddenly, the weight of Russell's diary in Klein's heart increased sharply. Miss Justice, let's give it a try. Klein the Fool began to teach Audrey how to put her thoughts on paper. Mr. Fool, can you see my inner thoughts? Audrey asked, looking at the Fool with some uneasiness. This future mind reader is terrified by the ability to read minds. No, I'm just a guide, helping you to express what you want to express. Klein lowered his voice to soothe him. It would be nice if he could read minds, but he really can't. It sounds like taking your inner thoughts and putting them on paper. Mr. Fool is really amazing. This is much more difficult than writing spiritual words. Shah praised, and spirituality extended from his hands. Shadows intertwined to form black paper. His fingers slid across the paper, and pure white runes were imprinted on the paper. Spirituality is the paper and spirit is the pen. Depravity is the bottom, pure white description. As the light and dark in one version of Pin Shishi, Shah's spirituality and mental strength are quite high. The three fools watched as the angel elegantly wrote the ancient Fasak runes that read, "Praise the Fool." Praise fools. Klein muttered to himself. Why do I feel like someone is trying to harm me? Mr. Angel, you are amazing. Justice, Audrey's eyes sparkled. This is not something that ordinary beyonders can do. The Hanged Man, Alger said the same thing. He felt that this was the special feature of Mr. Angel's path, just like the storm path was better at fighting at sea. Even some weak spirits can create illusions and interfere with reality to a certain extent. What about people? Shah crushed the paper in his hand and wrote, "Praise the Fool," on it. This made him reflect a little. Was this the influence of the singer's characteristics? Secret prayer plus singer, is this a sign of fanaticism? Fortunately, he has no faith. I am a person who likes equal exchange. If you can collect more diaries, I will give you more rewards. Fool, Klein said in a tone that didn't want to take advantage of the child. That's great. Audrey clenched her fist happily, then looked at the angel and the Hanged Man and asked. Gentlemen, do you have anything else to remind me about the audience? Shah and Alger looked at each other. Alger spoke first. You have to remember that the audience is just the audience. Only by maintaining an absolute spectator's attitude can you capture the actor's truest thoughts through observation. That sounds interesting. Audrey listened carefully, then looked at Shah. I want to emphasize that the audience exists to interfere with the performance on stage. Observation is only a means, manipulation is the end. Whether you force the actors to dance your favorite dance with a gun pointed at them, or use various social connections to exert influence, how to make the actors pay attention to the audience's opinions is the only thing you need to consider. Shah talked a little bit about his own understanding. Are you an angel or a devil? Klein the Fool complained as he looked through the mist at Mr. Angel, whose black hair was like a waterfall. This person's character can be seen from these words. Mr. Angel, I don't quite understand what you mean. Justice, Audrey was not used to Shah's straightforward way of speaking. Mr. Angel, the audience just needs to be good audiences. If they want to immerse themselves in the drama, they will be influenced by the characters in the play. Alger frowned slightly. He felt that the angel's idea was a bit extreme. Yeah, does a sailor have to stay on the ship for his whole life? A good sailor knows from the moment he sets foot on the sea that he exists to brave the storm. Shah-Ir killed the hanged man, Alger, with just 3 sentences. Alger's head was dizzy, and he felt even more dizzy than when he heard the fool's suggestion on how to act. Isn't he just a slightly older sailor now? Why didn't he have this idea? Mr. Angel, you are amazing. Justice, Audrey was also somewhat shocked. Even though she still had some resistance in her heart to Shah-Ir's words about manipulating others, she instinctively remembered Shah-Ir's words. Klein found it somewhat amusing to watch Mr. Hanged Man gradually recover. He was not influenced by the angel. What else can the fortune teller do in the future? Become a charlatan. At this time, everyone had nothing much to talk about, so they began to share some information around them. Alger looked at Shah-Ir deeply and said, Admiral Ludwell of Hell has once again begun his voyage to explore the eastern waters of Sonia. This is a pirate who has transcended vulgarity. Shah-Ir nodded. He liked this killer more than the bloodthirsty general who was raping and looting. From what I have heard, the secret order has lost a notebook belonging to the Antigonus family. The fool also contributed a piece of information. The rumored notes contain clues to the Antigonus family's treasure. Shah-Ir said this in a deliberately exaggerated tone. I don't know if this notebook contains any treasure, but I'm curious about the Church of Evernight's reaction. Alger also had an amused expression. Why would the goddess's church react? Audrey asked in confusion. Because the Antigonus family was destroyed by the Church of Night. Alger smiled. Should the victor hunt the loser to death? I don't quite understand. Although Shah-Ir knew the principle of cutting the grass at its roots. But he was also a student from an ivory tower before. In such an extraordinary world, he generally does not tend to total destruction. Because even if some weak and ordinary people escape, they will not be able to turn the tables. If you understand the Church of the Storm, you will know that you must treat your enemies with the ferocity of a storm. Alger chuckled. He didn't expect the angel to be so naive. The victor takes all, and we must cut off the roots. Mr. Angel is still too young. Klein also thought with amusement, but he didn't feel much relieved because the church might still need him to find the Antigonus family's notebook. Audrey didn't say anything. After all, Shah-Ir was talking about the Church of Darkness, which she believed in. This topic was a bit sensitive. Storms are not only fierce, they also have a tolerant side. Shah-Ir shook his head and had no intention of continuing to argue with Alger. In his opinion, it is a pity that the ancient supernatural creatures are dying out one after another. Although all major churches keep some extraordinary creatures that are needed for promotion. But many interesting and delicious extraordinary creatures have become extinct. Do you really understand the Church of the Storm? Alger, a member of the Church of Storms, looked at Shah-Ir and asked. It was the first time he had seen anyone emphasize that there was another side to the storm. Who are the storm followers? Can the Church of the Storm stand for storm? You can't even represent the Lord of Storms. Shah-Ir leaned back in his chair and said softly. You'd better not say this in front of the members of the Church of the Storm. Otherwise you might be in trouble. Alger, as an unconventional storm brother, did not get angry, but instead gave advice. This is the Tarot Club after all, and Alger will not argue with other members over such a small matter. Thank you for the reminder. Let me share a piece of news. There are signs of werewolves appearing in the Backland Bridge area. Shah-Ir casually shared an outdated piece of information. Maybe it's not completely outdated. The Brave Bar is in the Bridge District. If Sharon and Marich entered the Bridge District because of Jason and Tyr's evacuation, then his information is true, and the promoted werewolves were once werewolves. Werewolf. Audrey was stunned, then asked. This is not surprising. If you pay close attention, you will find that Backland has everything, such as werewolves, vampires, and other things. Alger was very calm. He also knew the complexity of Backland. Backland is the most prosperous city in the southern and northern continents. You can find a lot of things here that you can't find anywhere else. Alger explained when he saw Justice's stunned look. How come I never noticed? Audrey, Justice, couldn't tell for a moment whether Alger was talking about the Backland in her life. Seeing that no one was talking, Audrey knew it was her turn to share information. She adjusted her expression and chuckled. Yesterday my teacher taught me how to faint gracefully and politely in certain situations. Of course, this is just the beginning. What I really want to share is that due to the failure of the war on the east coast of Balam, the king, the prime minister, the parliamentarians, and all the gentlemen are under tremendous pressure. Shah-Ir shook his head slightly and said, as long as the kingdom of Loan is not invaded, no one will really care how many people died in the colonies and who died. What they may be worried about is the annual reduction in profits from the colonies. From Shah-Ir's observations of various banquets he attended these days, he did not see that these people were under any pressure. At most, some small nobles of the Conservative Party were beginning to feel the pain of the money they spent. Mr. Angel, maybe you are right, but the loss of the war affects the entire people of the Kingdom of Loan, not just the nobles. There are also some people who want to do something to change this outcome. I have heard some people discuss that they feel the current government structure is too chaotic. Whenever there is a change of party, internal staff will be replaced. This greatly slows down the efficiency of work, whether in foreign wars or in serving the people at home. Audrey said, recalling the discussion she heard at home. This election system is really too backward, isn't it? The king and the prime minister can consider the administrative system of the past. For example, during the Fourth Era, there was no need for an election process. Instead, the noble children of each family were directly assigned to important positions in the territories according to the status of the families. Shah-Ir said in reverse. In fact, it is not difficult to imagine that although the Fourth Era was an era in which imperial power and divine power coexisted, several empires still had feudal systems within them. After all, the emperors of the Fourth Era cared about faith in each other, and did not care about their nobles becoming powerful or rebelling. After all, those who were able to rebel had already done so, and those who had not yet rebelled would not be able to do so in a short period of time. The great nobles and their family members also needed their own territories to cultivate their beliefs. Anyway, as long as they believe in the emperor, can the emperor not allow other nobles to cultivate their own beliefs? As for the extraordinary ones, their memory, physical fitness, thinking ability, and learning ability have all been enhanced. They serve as officials in various places, have their own base, and have their own family staff. Even if they are not as good as the current nobles, they are still more capable than them. That was an era when powerful beyonders who had the ability to disrupt social order were all nobles and had fiefdoms. Each family has its own territory. Wild extraordinary people and ordinary people who can't even become nobles dare not cause trouble in the territories of these extraordinary families. This is an offense and provocation to the extraordinary family, and will result in a blood sacrifice. To a certain extent, the public security is better than it is now, and there are no occult gangs, because those who have some ability are all occult aristocrats, and the worst they can do is to be a knight. As for the lower class, there is actually no change. To some extent, farming on the feudal lord's land for a lifetime is slightly better than leaving home and coming to Backland, renting the worst coffin house, working in a heavily polluted factory without any protection, and living a life of day and night reversal. At least the mystic nobles care more about faith, population, and the long-term development of the territory than output. Shah-Ir shook his head. They were all just comparing the worst. There was nothing to compare. The only advantage was that hereditary lords and subjects had exchanged their freedom for dependence compared to elected mayors and freemen. The former may care a little more about the dependents. After all, if all the people in his own territory died, he would have to pay a price to buy people from other territories. It would be more cost-effective to let the people in his territory live and continue to produce income and faith by making a slight mistake. Mr. Angel, the system you propose is even more backward. Klein complained that the emperor died too early and did not bring more civilization to the world. No matter how bad party elections are, they are still better than the nobles directly taking office without having to vote. The feudal lord system is so backward no matter how you look at it. Ordinary people have no dignity, no human rights, and are unable to turn their lives around. Now at least there was some upward mobility, more freedom, and no sheriff would burst into your room with a whip to hurry you to the fields. Dignity and freedom are more important. This is the development of civilization and the progress of the times. People are born with the right to choose freely. The development of civilization should be to constantly break the shackles that restrict freedom. The fool looks at the angel. In every era, there is no lack of such thoughts that want to reverse history. The vision is bound by the times and is somewhat limited. Mr. Angel, if you personally experienced the life of the lower class in the Fourth Era and were driven by the butler or the head of the village to work in the fields for the noble lord, you would not think so. Mr. Fool laughed. That may be difficult. The angel responded shyly. Haha, times have changed. Although the nobles still own their own territories, they can only take the profits produced in the territories. This is different from the nobles who owned fiefs in the Fourth Era. If they were running their own territory, I believe that no matter how stupid they were, their attitude would not be so casual, and their reaction would not be like that of a flounder that could not adapt to a foreign environment and could only blow bubbles. Alger also made fun of the nobles. The national system of the Fourth Era. That might be better, there might be other issues, but we know that it's not practical. Gentlemen, do you have any other suggestions? Audrey smiled helplessly. Mr. Angel always likes to give answers that may sound useful but cannot solve practical problems. Shah-Ir did not continue to answer this question. What else could he say? Suggest that the kingdom of Loan give the emerging intellectuals a chance to do something. Or applaud and support the people's free starvation. It's a simple question. Seeing that no one answered, Klein smiled confidently. This was an area he was familiar with. He introduced the civil service examination system. Audrey thought carefully, and even Alger, who was not interested in the topic, listened attentively. Through question and answer sessions, the few people helped Rune develop a rough outline. Klein also made a significant contribution to Benson's landing in George III's deification ceremony. That's a really good idea. Mr. Fool, you must be an elder who is full of wisdom, rich in experience, and extraordinary in ability. The blonde girl praised sincerely. Mr. Fool's eyelids twitched. Yes, this kind of vision to think about things from the perspective of the entire kingdom is not something that everyone can have. If I hadn't known it was unlikely, I would have thought that you had led a huge country. Shah-Ir also followed suit and boasted. Is this a compliment or an insult to me? What do you mean you know it's unlikely? Klein was very depressed, but Shah-Ir's tone seemed to be asking, how could a mysterious person like you be involved with worldly power? Yes, a big shot like Mr. Fool is different from the king or the prime minister no matter how you think about it. Mr. Fool gave a simple solution to the problem they couldn't think of so quickly. Audrey, you must never underestimate Mr. Fool again. The blonde girl patted her cheeks gently. She had seen the king, the prime minister, and the archbishop of the church, but she had never seen a great man like Mr. Fool who was full of mystery and wisdom. Mr. Fool's identity might be more terrifying than she imagined. Let's end this party here. Klein looked at the three people who were obviously imagining things and reacted differently. He suppressed his embarrassment and announced the end of the party. He actually doesn't mind these members imagining things, but if you want to imagine something, just do it and don't say it out loud. Follow your will. ×3. Shah-Ir then stood up and saluted. He then communicated with his own crimson star, and his spirit shattered into pieces, and his consciousness began to return. The Fourth Age. Elf Settlement. Shah-Ir looked at the golden chain in his hand. He was silent for a while. He held a rhodes with one hand, borrowed the power of the natural disaster characteristics sealed in it, and squeezed it with the other hand, and lightning flashed. This lowest level seal was shattered, but it did not recondense into extraordinary characteristics. Instead, it turned into gray mist and returned to the mist of history. What is this? Shah-Ir looked at his empty right hand and muttered to himself silently. Of course he could understand it. Isn't this a historical poor image? The items sacrificed in the 5th age could not really reach the 4th age, so could they only project a historical poor image? Does Saphira Castle also have the ability to borrow power from the future and summon historical projections? Does Tianzun have this ability? Shah-Ir recalled his memories before the time travel, and he had never seen the 3 strange families use it in this way. Was this originally in Saphira Castle? Or was it unlocked by his time travel? What use is this ability to me? Shah-Ir looked at the magic mirror beside him and asked. Rhodes, what do you think? Sure, I have a feeling. Rhodes said hesitantly. Whatever you say, in the future timeline, I am just a lowly double sequence 9. If it's just the ability to summon historical projections, I really don't know how the future can help me with the present. Shah-Ir shrugged. He knew that the 4th era was a golden age for development, but if the future could not help the present, it would be a bit of a loss. No matter what, he just doesn't believe that this bug can't be exploited. Shah-Ir, can you do it again? The mirror of Rhodes showed what Shah-Ir had just done. In theory, yes. Wait a moment. Shah-Ir's figure disappeared in the swirling wind, and when he came back again, a misty heart appeared in his hand. This is a Sequence 3 ancient scholar trait that comes from a dead clan of demon wolves and is one of the collections in the elf treasury. Shah-Ir used this extraordinary characteristic and reached out to the void, trying to summon out the golden chain he had just possessed. His palm grabbed nothing, as if he was grabbing air, without the feeling of being connected to the mist of history. I certainly have. He thought about it. Could it be that the historical projection that is summoned cannot be a historical poor projection? Having come into contact with the historical projection of a sealed object does not count as having possessed the sealed object. But I didn't have it in the 4th age, but I did in the 5th age. Shah-Ir grabbed again, but still caught nothing. He tried to summon the characteristics of the Eden Sea King. Although it was difficult, after failing several times, he still summoned the extraordinary characteristics of the Sequence 3 level. Lack of power from Saphira Castle. What calls forth the future requires the future. Shah-Ir tried to use his spirituality to carve his own lucky rune in his mind, and he began to arrange a prayer ceremony pointing to the gray fog. Inside the gray fog space, the crimson star that symbolizes Shah-Ir began to flicker, and the arrangements left inside automatically responded, processing the news for the fool who was not online. In the real world, after Shah-Ir succeeded in the ritual magic, he summoned the historical projection again, and this time he summoned the future objects with ease. Rhodes, do you need me to shatter this seal again? Shah-Ir interrupted the prayer ceremony and asked while playing with the chain in his hand. Yes, I want to try and see if I can intervene in some way. The eye-like gems on both sides of the magic mirror lit up. Then give it a try. Just crush it. Anyway, the natural disaster feature is with you. Shah-Ir briefly recalled the process of crushing the extraordinary characteristics for the first time. Although he had some guesses, he was not a demigod of the White Tower after all, and did not find any obvious abnormalities. The mirror of Rhodes reflected the natural disaster characteristics sealed inside, and the lightning bursting out of the mirror shattered the seal. After the seal historical projection was shattered, it should have turned into gray mist and returned to the mist of history. But the surface of the magic mirror glowed with silver light, covering this part of the gray-white mist, attracting it into the inside of the mirror and blocking its connection with the outside world. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. The existence of historical fog is rather peculiar. The history inside and outside the secret town of the goddess of night are not connected to each other, and the two historical mysteries also do not intersect. After Rhodes absorbed the gray-white mist that constructed the historical poor projection into the mirror world, the gray-white mist could not return normally. Under the power of the magic mirror, it began to reunite, like a true Beander characteristic, completing the aggregation after being shattered. Shah-Ire applauded as he watched Rhodes's combination of the real and the virtual, and matter reconstruction operations. It was a Rhodes indeed. He was really good at it. There's something a little bit utopian about it, though only a little, and it plays on the fog of history. You have restored a sequence 9 Beander characteristic. Shah-Ire was very happy. Although it was only the lowest level of extraordinary characteristics, it meant a lot to him. I'm not sure. I tried to piece together a new set of characteristics based on what I know about them, but I don't know if this is a success. Rhodes was a little unsure. Then give it a try. Shah-Ire is not sure now whether Rhodes can only restore the characteristics of all 5 families. All this requires practice to get the answer. He reached into the mirror, trying to take out the singer's characteristic. However, when the Beander characteristic was about to leave Rhodes, it showed signs of collapse. It doesn't seem that easy. Let's try it in a different way. Shah-Ire let go of his hand, took a few steps back, and a virtual personality walked out and merged with the projection in the mirror. Shah-Ire in the mirror took on the characteristics of the singer, just like the sun shining through the night, the dawn quietly passing through the horizon. There is an inspiring power in the song. After confirming that this feature was really useful, Shah-Ire immediately turned off the microphone. The good news was that although it had great limitations, it was not completely useless. Rhodes, don't you think this is all very strange or incomprehensible? Shah-Ire asked in the mirror world. His spirit was able to keep in sync between the 2 eras through something in the gray fog, which even he himself found very magical. Shah-Ire, this may be the power of the pillar. As a local mirror, Rhodes's reaction was much calmer than Sher's. Yeah, Shah-Ire nodded, and he began to share Rhodes's search ability, searching the spirit world for the magical item he needed. If fate really has gravity, I will definitely get Grossel's travels. This fantasy book and Alasukid's pen always want to meet each other. And the best way to find them is to get one of these. Whether it's the past or the future. Shah-Ire was full of confidence when he heard the voice of the elf queen, Gao Shinam, calling him to a meeting. Whoever invented prayer should be shot. Shah-Ire sensed the time. Is this his personal get-off-work time? Do your best. He left a mission instruction to the projection in the mirror, then rode the wind to Blue Mountain Island and the nearby Sinamu Island. The waves automatically opened the door, the gate between the spiritual world and the real world opened up, and Shah-Ire stepped into the independent space opened up by the angels. This place is like a water curtain cave, and the interior is decorated in the elf style. There are also murals inside the palace depicting the battle between the elf king and the sun god. Along the way, Shah-Ire saw many female elves moving around everywhere, which made him curious. Are there so many maids in the kingdom of dark heaven and the kingdom of earth god? A demon wolf with 6 arms still needs to be served. My queen, what do you want from me? Shah-Ire raised his head and looked at the Queen of Disaster, sitting on the throne, and asked directly. Have you been a little too lazy lately? Gao Shinam stopped playing with the golden wine glass and said. Me, lazy. Shah-Ire thought about how he had been listening to the elf singers singing, fishing at sea, diving, barbecuing, sunbathing, paragliding, or teasing mermaids these days. I was digesting the potion. Do you know what digestion is? I took 2 portions of Sequence 3's Sea King characteristics. Shah-Ire would never admit that he was slacking off. He was digesting the potion and being the king of the sea. The mermaids he raised could form a reinforced company. Each one is as beautiful as Audrey, except that their shark-like teeth are a bit sharp. They are still very pleasing to the eye when they don't open their mouths. When do you plan to go out for training? Gao Shinam didn't insist. She glanced at Shah-Ire and asked. What's the meaning? Shah-Ire felt it was a bit ridiculous. No way, he had traveled through time. And he was not idle. He had managed the central Sonia Sea very well, and he also sheltered a group of sea creatures that were hunted by humans. You should go out for a walk. To get in touch with this new era. Just stay here, you might become an angel, but that's all you can do. There was no emotion in Kahinam's tone. Shah-Ir felt a little dazed. What's the difference between this and going out to a big city to try your luck and see the world? I have traveled through time, but the Chinese template is still chasing me. Are you my mother? Bang! Shah-Ir was hit by a bolt of lightning and flew backwards. He was not injured, and the electrotherapy was very effective, and the familiar sense of déjà vu disappeared. Shah-Ir's trance was directly broken by the electric shock, but his mother would not hit him. What were you thinking about? Gao Shinam's tone was a little unfriendly. She felt offended by Shah-Ir's look just now. Nothing. I just thought of my mother. Maybe that's not quite accurate. Should I say grandma? Sizzle. Sizzle. Silvery white electric snakes pounced on him again. Shah-Ir was prepared this time. He dodged flexibly and explained. Queen, please put away your magical powers. I don't have that thought anymore. Not at all. In fact, I almost forgot the last time I was spanked. My parents never hit me again after I was 12 years old. Now that I think about it, it is indeed an effective way of communication. Gao Shinam looked at Shah-Ir's somewhat jumpy look. She pursed her lips slightly, raised her hand helplessly, and lightning turned into a chair. The surrounding wind directly pressed him to sit upright on the chair. I know what you said. I would go out for a walk even if you didn't tell me. But at least let me become an angel first. You're not even an angel. What if you go out and run around and die? After Shah-Ir sat on the chair, he naturally leaned his head against the back of the chair and began to talk while counting on his fingers. The seat made of lightning was isolated by the phantom scales on the body surface and did not cause any harm. Get to the angel first. What are you as an angel? I am just the angel you mentioned. Gao Shinam's chest rose and fell slightly. Even though she was calm, she almost couldn't control the anger in her heart and hung Shah-Ir up and beat him. Does this look a bit like Aquaman? For a moment, Gao Shinam almost crushed the golden wine glass in her hand. Ordinary elves didn't dare to act so recklessly in front of her. She could ignore the nonsense said by other races, but there happened to be a Shah-Ir among the elves. Real. If you don't believe it, you can ask the god of luck. There are many who have become angels. Perhaps in 1,000 years, even a dog can become a saint. Well, I didn't say that the god of luck got there by chance. I just wanted to say that lucky people really exist. Shah-Ir watched as the elf queen's breathing became heavy, as if she was suppressing something, so he shut his mouth honestly. Because the elves' way of getting along with each other is simple and direct, other elves can basically not beat him. He almost forgot that no matter how calm the elf queen is, she is also an angel of the tyrant path, and she might really hit people. Seeing that Shah-Ir had become obedient, Gao Shinam temporarily suppressed her anger and snorted coldly, saying, I know what you said better than you do. In special times and with a certain amount of luck, angels are not untouchable. But how many angels are there in this world? Which of the angels still alive doesn't have other abilities? Fregola, Gregory, many of their descendants were born as angels. How many of these angels are still alive? I know you may have your own plans, but you have too little experience and you are too young. You are even less battle-hardened than many mid and low-sequence elves. You don't even have the will to kill the other party. Don't talk about murderous intent. Tell me, even when facing the Lord of Storms, do you have absolute hostility towards him in your heart? Gao Shinam's words struck directly into his heart, as if peeling off Shah-Ir's soul layer by layer. Shah-Ir could not refute it, these were all facts. The elves are all very pure. Even though they cannot resist the tyrant, they still have absolute hostility towards Leodoro who has taken away the power of the storm. Shah-Ir didn't have that kind of hostility, perhaps for many reasons. He knew that Leodoro was the lucky one who won by doing nothing and became a god. He knew that Leodoro was like an egg in front of the fallen mother goddess, and would break at the slightest touch. He knew that it was normal to seize power. He grew up in a pretty good environment, he didn't suffer too much, and he doesn't have those strong emotions. I just don't have that natural, righteous hostility toward evil. That doesn't matter. If necessary, I will take drastic measures. You're right. I don't have the kind of eager, hateful idea of fighting with someone. If there's a chance, I'll chop them down. If there's no chance, I'll create some trouble. After all, I stand on the side of the elves because we have similar faces, the same blood, and the highest cultural identity. Shah-Ir didn't know how to explain. This may be due to the god's perspective. He feels a bit like a gamer. Is Russell the same? Are we all playing role-playing games? How did Klein manage to fit in so quickly? You need to go out and see the world. You can't stay in the elves' settlement all the time. You can't just be in contact with the elves and the sea creatures. Goshinam emphasized again. She could not see any obvious love or hate in Shah-Ir, nor any strong emotions. He had divinity, but it was not strong. He did not lack humanity, but it was not strong enough. In the eyes of the elf queen, his current state is, to some extent, not as vivid as that of a half-crazy elf. He is restraining himself but not admitting it, deliberately showing it to prove that he is adapting well. Well, you better be prepared. I might ask you for help at any time. Shah-Ir patted his cheeks and perked up. Is there any better way besides agreeing? He could have stayed in the Rorstad Islands forever, but that was not necessary. He had been planning to go out and look for more high-level extraordinary characteristics. Where are your extraordinary characteristics of natural disasters? Take it out, I will seal it in your body for you, so that you don't have to be promoted for the time being, and you can also master the power of natural disasters in advance. When Gao Shinam saw Shah-Ir's obedient appearance, a smile appeared on her face. She had high expectations for Shah-Ir. This was a prophecy, or perhaps an intuition. Perhaps this elf can become a god. Why didn't you tell me earlier that you have this ability? The storm path is also good at sealing. Is this the ability of the dragon path or the white tower path? Shah-Ir was stunned when he heard what Gao Shinam said. Why didn't you tell me earlier? We are all elves, and you are playing tricks on me, right? I wanted to tell you last time. Who ran away early? Goshinam said calmly. Please wait a moment. I'll be back soon. Shah-Ir blushed, and disappeared into the palace of Kazanamu with the sound of the wind. After returning to his residence, he said to Erodes, Erodes, give me the scourge attribute. Kazanamu will help me seal the scourge attribute in my body. As long as I don't officially advance, the Lord of Storms won't be able to deal with me. Shah-Ir walked forward and knocked on the surface of the magic mirror. He gave his virtual personality in the mirror another instruction. Look for more locations with ownerless uniqueness and sequence 1 characteristics. We need to prepare early. The overall environment is bad now. Don't just focus on the full 5 and the 3. Mark the features that are available. We are not in a position to be picky. Shah-Ir's virtual personality continued to work overtime. Erodes released the natural disaster characteristics sealed in the mirror world. Are you going to take me with you when you go out this time? Not this time. I'm worried that you'll be snatched away by the true God. Let's keep in touch through the spirit world. And I'm in no rush to get out. After Shah-Ir got the natural disaster characteristic, he came to Gao Shinam's palace again. This time, he did not see several elven servants, but he did not care. The elf queen wanted to trick him into revealing his natural disaster characteristics. He doesn't believe it himself. Queen, how do we begin? Shah-Ir directly threw the extraordinary characteristics in his hand over and asked with some anticipation. This is a good opportunity to learn from others. He also ate the low-level white tower characteristics. Turn around. Gao Shinam took on the natural disaster characteristic. Her momentum rose, her back was covered by lightning, and the power of the extraordinary characteristic was forcibly suppressed. Turn around. Shah-Ir took a few steps back. Not right from the front. Why does he feel like he's about to get an injection? Are you going to do it or should I? The lightning around Kazanamu intertwined into a dagger. Should I really not have high hopes for the seal of the elves? Shah-Ir took the lightning dagger, hypnotized himself to reduce his pain sensation, and then cut open the right side of his chest. Blood oozed out, but was held up by invisible hands and did not fall to the ground. Shah-Ir frowned slightly. This was much more painful than the injection. Are you okay? Gao Shinam nodded slightly. She raised her hands and clenched them. All the lightning behind her flowed into the natural disaster attribute. This deep blue attribute seeped into Shah Ayer's flesh and blood along his wounds, like a second heart, taking root in his body. So simple. Shah Ayer felt it and found that his body and the characteristics of natural disasters did not begin to merge directly. Although the Elf Queen's operation was rough, the effect was really good. Simple. Get another natural disaster to help you. See if he can seal a characteristic of the same sequence without hurting you. Gao Shinam snorted. I just didn't say it, but it doesn't mean I'm not grateful. Shah Ayer curled his lips and said in a low voice. What did you say? Gao Shinam asked, raising his voice. They say you love the people like your own children. Shah Ayer made a joke and turned to leave, but found that the passage to the spiritual world was forcibly closed. What is this? He turned around stiffly. I just suggested it. I didn't urge you to leave the elves' land right now. You can continue to digest the extraordinary characteristics in your body and master the power of the natural disaster in advance. My seal is quite special. Every time you use the power of the natural disaster, a part of the characteristics will merge with you. Only when you truly master part of the power of the natural disaster can you continue to maintain the existence of the seal after you break away from me. Gao Shinam said in a calm tone. Oh, your seal is mainly based on violent suppression, and you need to inject new power to suppress it every once in a while. Only when I have partial power over the natural disaster can you save some energy when helping me. Shah Ayer translated through the audience's analysis and the wisdom of the White Tower. I saw your battle with the Sea King of the Church of the Storm. Very bad. You advanced from sequence 5 to sequence 3 too quickly. You didn't master the power of the storm, the audience, the White Tower, and a small part of something else. It's as ridiculous as stabbing someone with an arrow. Gao Shinam said expressionlessly. I studied. Shah Ayer raised his hands in surrender. Which time traveler had rich combat experience before traveling across time? A serious person probably hasn't even fought a few times, right? You don't have to pay compensation if you kill someone here, but you're likely to be the one being killed. Come here, I'll teach you. Gao Shinam crossed his legs and hooked his fingers. Isn't this bad? Let's go to another place. If the spiritual space you worked so hard to open up is destroyed, wouldn't that be unfair? Shah Ayer shook his head. He had at least reached the threshold of natural disasters. It was not impossible for him to break up a piece of the spiritual world. It was not like he was destroying the spiritual world. It should not be difficult to open a few holes. It's okay, I'll teach you the basics first. Kahinam stood up from the throne and walked over step by step. The most basic ones. Are you going to teach me how to use extraordinary abilities? Or various practical spells? Shah Ayer asked curiously. Neither. The first thing you need to learn is close combat. As the Elf Queen spoke, there seemed to be thunder in his ears, and a silver-white light flashed before his eyes. Shah Ayer flew backwards again and hit the huge stone pillar in the palace. The Elf Queen retracted her white and slender thighs. She shook her head as she looked at Shah Ayer, who rolled twice on the ground. Her figure was as fast as lightning. She walked to Shah Ayer's side in one step and kicked him again. Wait a minute. Shah Ayer grabbed the Elf Queen's ankle, and the huge force made the elf's wrist numb. He looked up at Gao Shinam and said unhappily. Can't you control an elemental incarnation to beat me up? I don't want to fight you fist to fist. It feels awkward and disgusting. Where do you think I should hit you? Your face or your chest? Or your stomach? I can only hit your shoulder. That's not fair. Shah Ayer really didn't want to fight with a woman like this. It didn't matter whether he used weapons or skills, but just punched and kicked, or really hit someone he was familiar with. He felt very uncomfortable. He was just an ordinary person before he traveled through time. He didn't smoke, drink, or fight. He really wasn't used to this. He doesn't want to fight. He is only used to killing people. I am fighting with you, am I playing house with you? Hit me wherever you want. Why didn't you say you weren't used to it when you were fighting that Sea King? You didn't want to hit a woman. You care about these things. No, judging from your expression, you don't want to fight with a familiar woman like a tantrum. Do you think this is a loss of face for you? Your behavior makes me a little afraid to let you go, in case you die without knowing how. Gao Shinam felt that Sha'ir did not understand the bloodiness and cruelty of this world at all. She looked at Sha'ir, who subconsciously and hesitantly loosened her ankle, and she kicked him out without any hesitation. What era are you from? Why do you have so many messed up concerns? You even let go of your hand when my foot was just touched. What are you afraid of? If you are not a born extraordinary creature, I really doubt how you can survive in this world. Not like a man at all. Gao Shinam frowned. She believed in a cold worldview that survival was paramount, and could not understand Sha'ir's dilemma caused by gender differences. The ancient wars recorded on the surrounding elven murals seemed to emphasize what kind of world this was. Sizzle, sizzle. Surrounded by silver-white electric current, Sha'ir was unhappy with Gao Shinam's quick and decisive attack, so he kicked whenever he wanted. This has been 2 surprise attacks. Are you the only one who can carry out a surprise attack? He rushed towards Kazanamu with thunder surrounding him. The air in the elven palace became sticky and heavy, and the invisible wind bound the elven queen like shackles. Gao Shinam looked at the elf's hair that stood up due to the stimulation. She stood there without moving, her eyebrows slightly raised, and was looking forward to Sha'ir's performance. Bang, bang, bang. Gao Shinam was knocked down by Sha'ir, and the two rolled on the ground twice. The lightning around Gao Shinam's fingertips was like steel needles that disintegrated Sha'ir's defense and would soon penetrate into her flesh and blood. She looked at Sha'ir's raised fist as if waiting for something. The electric snakes tore at his flesh, and the pain once again made instinct take over. She was not polite, and neither should he. In terms of control over lightning, Sha'ir was far from being a match for Gao Shinam, but when it came to basic strength values, the gap was not that terrifying. His palm was covered with a layer of scales, and he punched out, aiming for the elf queen's head, which was most suitable for attack. Gao Shinam just watched, the electric light accumulated in her fist getting closer and closer. Her eyes did not fluctuate at all, her fingers wavered slightly, and the seal of the natural disaster characteristic was slightly released. Sha'ir's emotions were affected by the characteristic, low-frequency thunder vibrated out from her chest, and her personality became more brutal. Boom! Sha'ir punched the elf queen next to her delicate and beautiful face. The fist finally landed on the ground not far away, instantly creating a deep pit, and silver-white electric snakes hissed angrily. Sha'ir's long hair, which stood up due to the stimulation of the electric current, seemed to have lost control and fell down to cover his cheeks. His expression was a little ferocious, but his whole temperament revealed a bit of confusion. What am I doing? This is not fun. Hit her. Why? Sha'ir was a little uncomfortable. They seemed to be simulating a fight. He shouldn't be so pretentious. He should just fight directly. He just shouldn't use his fists. Would it be better to kick him out? But it's boring. Can I change my opponent? No, what am I doing? This doesn't seem to make sense. Isn't it easier to kill her than to beat her? He was just not used to using his fists. He could destroy a town with a lightning storm without any hesitation, no matter if it was men, women, old or young. Sha'ran, who had hardly ever fought, made trouble, or skipped school since childhood, had trembling hands. How should he beat her better? It's really interesting. You don't respect and revere the elf queen as much as other elves do. You don't feel fear or admiration for the former sun god or the current 6 gods. When facing the enemy, you can be crazier than the aliens. When you first met me, you were not afraid. You were not afraid of real angels. Why are you worried about this and that now that you are just a little familiar with me? When you subconsciously wanted to create a ball of electricity to blow me up just now, you were not as conflicted as you are now when you swing your fist. Gao Shinam read Sha'ir's psychological activities, and gently brushed his fingertips across the back of Sha'ir's tense hand. Looking at Sha'ir, who was trying to get up in a very decadent manner, he suddenly smiled and said, "Are you so anxious? You don't want to ride a little longer?" Bang! Those light words were like thunder from the sky. Shal-Ir's movement to prop up his body froze, and he seemed to be stupid. His mind was blank, and the pointed ears that were not covered by his long hair quickly turned red, while his face turned pale. He looked like he was dead, as stiff as a corpse. You, don't talk nonsense, this is not a joke. I, still have, something to do. I'll leave first. Shal-Ir explained a few words with some stammering, then turned around and flew out of the palace. The shame of being seen browsing history made him want to fly from the Rhodes Islands to the northern continent right now. You can't leave yet. It seems I still have a lot to teach you. I'm really afraid that if you go out for a walk, you will be so confused that you will force your own position to death. Gao Shinam was faster than Shal-Ir. She grabbed Shal-Ir's long hair and dragged him back. Of course Shal-Ir refused. He really didn't dare to stay here any longer. This female monster who could read minds was too scary. Even the natural disaster characteristics in his body were activated. He would rather have his hair pulled out than leave quickly. You don't really think that you can use the thing I sealed for you against me, do you? Gao Shinam snorted coldly at Shal-Ir, who was still trying to run away. Her power extended along Shal-Ir's hair, and the natural disaster characteristics in Shal-Ir's body were directly suppressed. Shal-Ir was in so much pain that tears came out, but the damn hair was still not torn off. Don't waste your energy. Elf hair is very difficult to tear apart. The stronger the elf, the more difficult it is. The Beander characteristic gives the hair a high degree of strength. Gao Shinam pulled hard, and Shal-Ir stumbled back. She grabbed Shal-Ir's shoulders and pushed aside the hair that was in the way. She twisted Shal-Ir's chin and forced his frightened eyes to look into her own brown eyes. You want me? Shame. Intense shame. The dark side of my heart was revealed. Shal-Ir's pounding heartbeat sounded like a drum, echoing rapidly in the empty and deserted palace. He didn't know why he was like a fool and didn't know how to react. He was obviously very comfortable when he was teasing Soren, but now, he just wanted to die. Why didn't he die? Gao Shinam looked at Shal-Ir, whose eyes were evasive and whose face was red as if blood was about to drip out. She raised the corner of her mouth, grabbed his chin, leaned in and kissed him. Break apart at the touch of a finger. Shal-Ir stared at the elf queen in a daze, his heart beating faster. What's your name? Asked Goshnam. Shah-Ran. Shal-Ir replied unconsciously. How old are you? Are your 2 lives total 100 years? Goshinam continued to ask. Shal-Ir wanted to turn his head, but his hair and chin were grabbed tightly, so he could only shake his head. What about 50? Shal-Ir hesitated and shook his head again. It turns out it's still a baby. Goshinam's tone lightened a little. He was a subordinate god who lived from the 2nd age to the 4th age, and he could accept that a baby elf could be so immature. I am not. Shal-Ir retorted subconsciously. He felt it was too embarrassing to mention the word, baby. Lie. Gao Shinam bit Shal-Ir's pointed ear, and Shal-Ir's breathing became a little rapid. Are you still running? You don't want to run away. You want to stay here, looking forward to more. Shal-Ir didn't say anything, but the upper elf read his thoughts through mind reading. Tell me, just now. You've also been in contact with several women. Gao Shinam dragged Shal-Ir back to the throne on the high platform. She sat on it, held Shal-Ir in her arms, stroked his cheek with one hand and asked. Not many. Shal-Ir sat on Gao Shinam's lap somewhat at a loss, and was somewhat reluctant to answer such questions. You're not lying. It seems there really aren't many. Gao Shinam observed Shal-Ir's expression and nodded. You didn't bring those women back. You just wanted to have some fun and didn't want to get into trouble, right? Goshinam asked again. Shal-Ir opened his mouth and felt his throat a little hoarse, but looking at Gao Shinam's calm brown eyes, he nodded with difficulty. He felt like his life was dead. Again. Died. He is so irresponsible. You did a good job. Unexpectedly, Gao Shinam touched Shal-Ir's head with satisfaction. It seems that my worry was a little excessive. Although you are still a baby, you are already sensible. No wonder I was fooled by your performance before. Goshinam said with relief. What do you mean? Shal-Ir asked in disbelief. Don't you understand? Are you confused? Is this hard to understand? When you were free and playing with those mermaids, didn't I ask about it? Gauss Sheenham turned his wrist, and the scene of what happened in the Rhodes Islands, where Shal was fishing and teasing the mermaid, emerged. Bang! Shal smashed the screen into pieces with one punch. You invade my privacy. Can you please respect God's moral bottom line? What's the difference between this and God snooping into believers' daily lives? At this moment, Shal desire to move out and live alone became very strong. Fortunately, he returned to the elven settlement after becoming a demigod. If he had returned at sequence 5, his underwear would have been exposed. First, this is my extra attention to you. Otherwise, why would you be treated this way now? Second, believers have no privacy. That's just because the gods are too lazy to look at it. It doesn't mean that the gods will consider the believer's thoughts. Goshinam corrected Shile's two mistakes. You mean, like a mermaid. But that's what Shal wanted to say was that Soren was a human, but he suddenly paused. In the eyes of Goshinam, Soren at sequence 5 seemed to be no different from a mermaid. There are no human rights here either. If it were in the second era, in the elf camp, the status of the sea people would be even higher than that of humans. What exactly do you want to say? Shal struggled for a while, and Gauss Sheenham let go of his hand. He stood up and asked the elf queen while looking at the throne. What do I want to say? You've touched, hugged, and kissed. Is that enough now? Kahinam asked, looking at Shaer with interest. Shal expression became a little stiff again. What did he say? Enough. Or not enough? Brush. Another flash of lightning flashed across the sky. This time, Shal accurately caught the elf queen's kicking calf. He did not hesitate this time and punched the elf queen's shoulder with his other hand. Gauss Sheenham still had no defense. Seeing that Shal did not hold back this time, she nodded with satisfaction. She raised her hand and waved it gently. A breeze blew along her calf that was held, blowing up her loose robe. Look, don't watch. Damn it, I already have no face anyway, so why not watch it? You have to choose between hypocrisy and meanness, right? I am just a lowly person, so what? Shal paused in his attack, his sight shifted involuntarily, and then he saw dark blue scales covering the parts that should not be exposed like clothes. I knew it. Boom. A severe blow to the abdomen. Gauss Sheenham kicked Shal abdomen with his other foot. Even though Shal had grown scales on his abdomen for defense, it only mitigated the damage. His stomach churned and he almost lost his balance. Bang! Another kick. Shal fell off the platform in front of the throne and couldn't help vomiting. His originally clean clothes became stained with filth. He fell to the ground, and before he could use water to wash off the dirt on his body, Gauss Sheenham was already riding on her. The filthy vomit was stained on her body, but she didn't care at all. She raised her hand and punched Shal in the face again and again, and her fists were covered in blood. Shal subconsciously raised his arms to block in front of him, but Gauss Sheenham's attack was like a violent storm with a momentum to kill him on the spot. Gauss Sheenham forcibly pried his arms apart. His brown eyes showed no expression. He almost disregarded his image and smashed his head hard on Zishel's head. Bang! A huge crash was heard. The scales on Shal forehead were broken, his eyes were gradually filled with madness, his fingertips began to grow longer, cutting bloody wounds on the arm where Gauss Shinmu was holding him, and his hair hit Gauss Shinmu's head like a violent sledgehammer, and was shattered by her punch. At this time, Shal finally freed one hand. He swung his hand like a whip, sweeping it at Gauss Sheenham's waist, sweeping her out and hitting her against the wall. He stood up from the ground, his hair began to extend like giant tentacles, his body was covered with dense fish scales, two bulges slowly grew on his back, and he stared fiercely at the woman who was smashed into the wall. This time, he was beaten by Gauss Shinmu and he even unlocked some mythical creature forms. Can you be cruel to me now? You are improving very quickly. Now you are a little smart. Come, I'll teach you how to fight. Gauss Sheenham jumped down from the dent in the wall. Her abdomen, which was deliberately injured by Shal had healed by now. The angel's recovery ability was very strong. Roar. Shah-Ir roared, and his swollen hair smashed towards Gauss-Shinam's position like iron whips. Silver-white lightning flowed on the hair, weaving into a huge net. Gauss-Shinam licked her lips, and a long-lost fighting spirit and wildness appeared in her calm eyes. Her body was wrapped in a strong wind, separating the tentacle-like hair. She grabbed a part of it and turned Shah-Ir on the other side over and over, smashing big holes in the palace. With a whoosh sound, a lightning spear pierced towards Gauss-Shinam's face. She raised her hand to smash the spear. Shah-Ir's hair shrank and rebounded, carrying him towards Gauss-Shinam like a cannonball. Gauss-Shinam looked at Shah-Ir, who was delivering the goods to his door, and threw him directly to the ground, sat on him and beat him up. The space where the entire elf palace was located shook violently. Other elves in the outside world noticed the fluctuations in the spirit world. They wanted to come over to check it out, but were sent back directly by the elf queen's maids. Time goes by. Shah-Ir didn't know how many times he had been beaten. There was no part of his body that didn't hurt. His eyes were so swollen that he couldn't see clearly. His waist hurt so much that it was almost broken by a kick. Looking at Shah-Ir, who had lost consciousness on the ground, Gauss-Shinam's slightly rapid breathing gradually subsided. She retracted her foot, released the other's arm that was about to be torn off, and wiped her cheek whose wound was healing rapidly. She was also slightly injured. After all, she didn't want to destroy the space she had opened up in the spiritual world, so she couldn't use many of the powers of natural disasters. But the crazy Shah-Ir didn't care about that. Gauss-Shinam then hit a little harder. That is to say, beat Shah-Ir until he activates some of his mythical creature forms, beat his opponent's mythical creature forms until they are out of control, and then beat his opponent's mythical creature forms until they are closed. This was not difficult for Gauss-Shinam, who worked part-time as a psychologist. Stand up. Keep fighting. Gauss-Shinam kicked Shah-Ir, but the other party did not react. She dragged Shah-Ir up by his hair, looked at the dirt on his body and the clothes hanging like rags, and saw herself who was equally dirty, and felt a little disgusted for a moment. She raised her hand and a whirlpool of water emerged around them, washing the two of them clean. She stroked the elf's bruised face, and the wounds gradually healed. She also gently pinched it twice as if kneading mud, making the elf's already handsome face softer. It's much more pleasing to the eye this way. She pinched Shah-Ir's cheek and made some minor adjustments according to her preference. She nodded with satisfaction at first, and then her eyes dimmed for a moment, as if she remembered the elf king who had long fallen. This sadness did not last long. Her expression returned to calm. She lowered her head to look somewhere, reached out her hand, pinched it and flicked it hard. This gave her some pleasure. Played it again. Looking at the unresponsive Shah-Ir, Gauss-Shinam threw him into the bathtub. The elf slowly sank to the bottom. She was not worried about drowning a sea king, so she released some of the suppression on the natural disaster characteristics. The power of the natural disaster characteristic began to help Shah-Ir recover from his injuries and gradually began to adapt and merge with Shah-Ir's body. After doing all this, Gauss-Shinam also walked into the bathtub. She snapped her fingers, and the water temperature began to rise to a terrifying level. However, she hummed comfortably and slowly closed her eyes. Time goes by. When Shah-Ir gradually woke up, he felt like a fish that was about to be cooked. He opened his eyes and saw a pair of white, slender bare feet on the water above. He rubbed his still aching waist, swam to the surface, lay on the edge of the bathtub, and shook off the water droplets on his hair with some discomfort. You woke up pretty quickly. Gauss-Shinam smiled somewhat teasingly. Shah-Ir looked over in confusion and saw the elf queen wrapped in a nightgown, who was looking at him with a teasing look. He looked down, his pupils shrank, and he put his hands in front of him to protect himself and dived into the water again, leaving only his head spitting bubbles in anger. The clothes are gone. Not a big problem. Anyway, I lost face. Illusory scales grew on his body to cover his vital parts. He looked with some resentment at the elf queen who was leisurely leaning against the bathtub enjoying the hot spring. You beat me like a human being. You almost killed me, you know. Gao Shinam noticed Shal-Ir's gaze and pulled down the collar of her nightgown. When Shal-Ir saw this action, he was startled and instinctively put his hands in front of him to prepare for defense, paying close attention to Gao Shinam's movements with a highly tense mind. However, Gao Shinam only loosened her nightgown, revealing some white skin and a dark groove on the seabed. She noticed Shal-Ir's subconscious defensive posture, nodded with satisfaction and said, "Yes, that's it. Yes, that's it." Goshinam looked satisfied. But the more she did this, the more alert Shal-Ir became, worried that the female Tyrannosaurus would break his waist again. As for the bait thrown by the other party, he didn't even look at it. "Come over." Gao Shinam waved to Shal-Ir, and Shal-Ir swam back silently. This time, he would not believe anything he said. "Stop messing around and come here quickly." Gao Shinam urged Shal-Ir again. Shal-Ir hesitated and swam over slowly. He was not afraid. He was facing the danger head-on and would never back down. "Come closer." Gao Shinam helped Shal-Ir turn around. She stroked Shal-Ir's hair from behind, and made the messy hair straight and smooth strand by strand. "I do not understand." Shal-Ir's tone was filled with doubt and confusion. "What don't you understand? You dare to have thoughts about me, what else don't you understand?" Goshinam hit Shale on the head. Then, "Even if why do you? I don't understand." Shal-Ir wanted to turn his head, but his hair was held by Gao Shinam, so he could only sink into the water and speak while blowing bubbles. "Why didn't I kill you? At least give you a punishment that is so profound that you will never forget it in your lifetime." Gao Shinam asked back, trying to guess what Shal-Ir was thinking. "Your attitude towards me is not like that towards an ordinary elf." As Shal-Ir was speaking, he was about to sink his head completely under the water, but was pulled out again by Gao Shinam's hair. "I have high expectations of you." Goshinam did not deny it. "That's not worth it, is it?" Shal-Ir was very confused. Was Gao Shinam sure that he could become a true god? But he himself did not have absolute confidence, and even if that was the case, there was no need to say so. "Even if I could become an angel, I still cannot do without your help. I won't repay you with hatred." Shal-Ir felt that the possibility of him backstabbing Gao Shinmu was very small, and he did have the natural disaster characteristics. "I expect more from you than just an angel." Gao Shinam said what Shal-Ir expected. Shal-Ir reached back and pried open the hand that was holding his hair. He turned his head, looked into the elf queen's eyes and asked seriously, "So what do you expect from me? Become a god. I trained you to be the next generation leader of the elves." Gao Shinam looked at Shal-Ir with gentle eyes and smiled. "Ah." Shal-Ir was stunned. What was this? Seize power. Demise. It's a bit too early. Are you kidding me? You are still here, the god of luck is still here, is it my turn? You don't expect me to become a god, do you? If so, I advise you to give up your idle fantasies as soon as possible. At this time, Shal-Ir did not have much obsession with becoming a true god. If there was a chance, he would give it a try. If there was no chance, it didn't matter. There were angels who survived to the end. The god of wishes, the dark demon wolf, Kotar, can survive in the god-forsaken land. Can't he find an uninhabited sea area to claim his throne as the ancestor? Gao Shinam didn't care about Shal-Ir's impolite words. She put her arms around Shal-Ir's neck and whispered in her ear. "As long as you can become an angel, you will be the next leader of the elves. This is the promise I, the elf queen, make to you." So simple. Shal-Ir's vigilance, honed by the many disturbance calls he received, told him that something was wrong. "Of course I expect you to achieve greater success, but I know that it is very dangerous, so I won't force you to do anything. If you become an angel, I will consider entrusting all the elves to you." Goshinam said affirmatively. After the death of Lilith, the founder of the blood race, the goddess of beauty, Ornia, could only let the blood race scatter everywhere to avoid being wiped out. How can I be worthy of this? Shal-Ir still felt that there was something wrong. Even if he became a sequence 2, he was just an ordinary. All right. After becoming sequence 2, He was not afraid of death and could be used by the Angel King, but he didn't really think of using himself as a consumable. After you become an angel, if the living environment of the elves deteriorates further, you can take some of the elves to seek refuge with the gods who are willing to accept you and the one you like the most. You can become his angel on earth, bring the elves to join his church, and preserve the fire of the elves. Gao Shinam's slender white fingers stroked across Sha'ir's face. No emotion could be heard in her tone, but there was a flash of sadness in her eyes. Is that what I use? Is this what the elven leader meant? Sha'ir understood now. No wonder the god of luck was not good. The god of luck was a sequence 1, an archangel. How could a sequence 2 be as stable as a sequence 1 if he surrendered? The god of luck has to hide from the angel of fate, the true creator, or the fallen god. You can't bring yourself to surrender to those people you once looked down upon, so you're going to let me surrender. How come you are so smart? Sha'ir wanted to look back at Gao Shinam, but was strangled by the neck. After a brief hesitation, he chose to raise his hands in surrender, just to save some face for the Queen of Disaster. You don't want to seek refuge with a certain god? Gao Shinam asked in a complicated tone. I really don't want to do that, because I'll lose my freedom, but it's not impossible. The little freedom that angels lose can be easily compensated from other places. Sha'ir said this without any psychological burden. He even thought of seeking refuge with the mother goddess of the earth, the ancestor of the blood race. The two families were allies of the pan-humanoid camp in the past, and the elves had done nothing wrong to the blood race. If Sha'ir sought refuge with them, theoretically he could live a very comfortable life. Lilith wouldn't be so stupid as to harm a sequence 2 who had come to her for help. She also lacked useful gods favored ones under her command. He has no problem of enduring hardships without any hesitation. He should surrender when he should. Those who are stubborn should go to the Warhammer universe to follow the Emperor. You don't seem to be resisting. Gao Shinam tapped Sha'ir's head, and her tone became more formal. Then you must learn from me how to become a qualified leader. You will shoulder the fate of an entire race. If you are so immature, I doubt how much of the interests that originally belonged to the elves you will sell out. What do you mean? What am I betraying? Sha'ir couldn't help but slap the water, causing a splash. What did he do? He didn't do anything, but he was accused of selling out his interests. Which angel needs to betray his own race? It's not like he can't afford to live, so why would he betray his compatriots? I'm just saying you're immature. Gao Shinam said calmly. Oh, do you think I can't kill decisively? Who can't kill indiscriminately? I just don't want to. Sha'ir snorted lightly. He just had relatively few experiences, but as a time traveler, his morals were still very flexible. He just didn't want to change himself easily. He would only consider leaving some room for maneuver when he held the power of life and death in his hands. This innocence, left to the past, also serves as one's anchor. A storm can overturn ships at sea, but it can also give people who fall into the water a chance to see if fate will favor them and allow them to encounter a second ship willing to rescue them. Since he can't stand on a high place, he doesn't need to think about it. He just needs to find a way to ensure that he stays alive. When he was a sailor, he wanted to become a storm. Even after he became a storm, he should not forget that he was once a sailor struggling on the sea. No one tells you how to live. It is too easy to not care about the lives of ordinary people, and that line can be easily crossed. He can not care, but at least he should care. Sha'ir thought that his accomplishments were sufficient for the time being. He was influenced by 5,000 years of history. Don't you know how to be a superior? A fist as big as a casserole is placed here, with a big stick in one hand and sweet dates in the other. When you need to bow your head, bow your head. When you need to punch, punch. He relies on his reputation to make a living. Even if he is naive, it is better than a few words from others that he will change himself and become another person. The arrogance of a time traveler is that what you said may be right, but I am living a good life now and I have my own rhythm. I'm smiling at you on the surface, but I won't listen to what you say. You think you know everything? Gao Shinam asked, narrowing his eyes. Know astronomy from above, geography from below. Know the past clearly and you won't be confused about the future. Shah Ayer's lips curled up slightly. He really knew a little bit about everything. Then let me ask you a few questions. If you have extra saintly qualities in your body. Before Gao Shinam finished speaking, Shah Ayer interrupted him and said, let alone the saint characteristics, even if it is the extra angel characteristics, I will not hesitate to share them with the elves. Oh, really? What about the storm path, or even the other 4 extraordinary paths that can be converted into each other? If you have other high-level characteristics. This time, Gao Shinam was interrupted by Shah Ayer after he had just started talking. What do you think you are going to say? I might keep some special ones for collection. If my friends need to use these features, then let them use them. Even if he's not an elf. Gao Shinam's tone quickened. Even if he's not, hiss. Shah Ayer answered without thinking, then covered the soft flesh on his waist that was about to be twisted off, and let out a sound of sucking in cold air. Is this what you call maturity? Is this what you call not betraying the interests of the elves? Gao Shinam's hands were so strong that it seemed as if he could crush a small mountain. Shah Ayer was in so much pain that he almost cried. He pinched Gao Shinam's thigh with his backhand and subconsciously wanted to pinch it back, but after hesitating for a moment, he let go and did not do anything. Mainly guilty conscience. But it doesn't seem right for him to be bullied for nothing, right? Even the elf queen. Even the elf queen. His falling hair extended like tentacles, wrapping around Kahinam's body, not tightening violently, but simply rubbing the soles of her feet. After a severe beating, many of Shah Ayer's mental seals were shattered, and he became much braver, but he did not evolve directly to the level of elbowing. Control, test, be ready to counter at any time, hee. As Gao Shinam continued to comment, she was tickled and couldn't help laughing, and the strength in her hands weakened. Shah Ayer felt the pain subside, and his hair no longer tickled her, but it was still entangled in her body. For a moment, he was really worried that if he relaxed, he would be kicked out and told, that's it. You need to practice more. Pretty considerate. Gao Shinam moved his legs. Although they were wrapped tightly, there was no uncomfortable pain. Shah Ayer's hair felt a little itchy, and his eyes became vague. He looked down at the ripples on the water, as if he was in a daze, but in fact he felt guilty. How did the elf queen know that he might have been acting as a nanny out of some affection and kindness? This is unscientific. Do you realize your mistake? Gao Shinam asked, lying on Sher's back. I'm not wrong. Shah Ayer answered firmly. Whether he was right or not was another matter. But he would not admit his mistake. This was a matter of principle. Is this wasteful habit of yours subconsciously right? Gao Shinam's tone rose a little. She had seen through Shah Ayer's casual attitude of not taking extraordinary characteristics and mysterious resources seriously. She didn't know if this was because Shah Ayer had experienced the prehistoric era and had not changed his mindset, believing that as long as one person was well fed, the whole family would not be hungry, and he looked very lightly on these resources that could serve as a foundation. She only knew that if she didn't make things right now, she didn't know how many things this guy would give away for free in the future. I am a loser. Shah Ayer was shocked. It was such an unfamiliar adjective. Before he traveled through time, he wore a pair of sneakers for 3 years and his entertainment expenses did not exceed 500 yuan a month. How could a frugal young man like him be called a spendthrift? Did he start a business? Did he take out a loan? Did he trade stocks? I can see that you like sharing and showing off. You like to help others and show your ability and strength. Gao Shinam exposed ruthlessly, and she could feel that the hair that was originally full of vitality wrapped around her body wilted in an instant. Shah Ayer clung to the edge of the bathtub with lifeless eyes, his head hitting the agate inlaid slab again and again. Why does this world have such disgusting things as audiences? I want to show my divine power in front of the Tarot Club members. Have I eaten your rice? Why are you so sure that I will give you these characteristics for free in the future? Shah Ayer had never been as desperate as he was now. Even though the beautiful elf queen was right behind him, Shah Ayer did not have any desire at this moment. He just wanted to be reincarnated as a mushroom, and just wanted to find a deserted place to bury himself. You don't have to feel ashamed. Even among ordinary animals, strong males will want to gain more by showing off their strength. The corners of Gao Shinam's mouth curled up slightly, and she whispered comfortingly. Bang! Sha'ir broke the floor next to the bathtub. He tried to crawl out tremblingly, away from this cannibalistic place, but was dragged back by Gao Shinam's hair. Big sister, please forgive me. I'm still a baby. Sha'ir covered his face with his hands in grief and anger. Steam even began to come out of his head. He was 2,500 years earlier than Russell, who started the Industrial Revolution. Hee, you don't have to be shy. I have lived for thousands of years and witnessed the growth and decline of too many lives. You just need more learning and more experience. Oh, by the way, what you wanted to say just now is that those are all my things, my private property. I am free to deal with them as I please. It has nothing to do with the interests of the elves, right? Who are you trying to show off to? Sha'ir could no longer bear this kind of torture. He turned into lightning and left the bathing pool and went out of the palace. However, Gao Shinam's reaction was faster than his. The originally peaceful elf palace suddenly began to shake, and the storm spread through the pressure of the superiors on the inferiors. It was unknown how many angel characteristics Gao Shinam contained, and he once again pulled Sha'ir back. Can't run away. This time, Sha'ir hugged Gao Shinam tightly, buried his face in his chest, and refused to raise his head. He even closed his pointed ears and didn't want to listen to anything. Very cute. Gao Shinam's voice rang directly in Sha'ir's heart. It was useless to close his ears to the damn audience. Sha'ir hugged her tighter. He wanted to strangle Gao Shinam to death. Tell her to stop talking. Your biggest shortcoming is that you still have some of the so-called morals of your time. Especially since your mind is still immature, these will become a burden to you. Even the sun god cannot escape this. He was quite generous. What was the result? If possible, I even hope that you can learn from the cunning and cruel Olmir. If the king had not been so strong at that time, we might still have a chance. Now, look up and look at me. There was some magic in Gao Shinam's voice. Sha'ir raised his head from her chest hesitantly, and then was kissed by her. Now, put aside your morals. Her voice echoed in his mind. The fifth era. Sha'ir suddenly woke up from his dream. He rubbed his arms uncomfortably, and a small layer of bumps appeared on his arms. Those were like real experiences. No, they were real. He was filled with a strong sense of astonishment. He was actually forced into it. After the push, she wasn't satisfied yet, so she dragged herself up again, under the pretext of directing the fight. She beat herself until her bones were weak and drained of all her strength, and she still wanted me to be her pillow. Continue the next day. What kind of hell on earth is this? Ha, ha. In the darkness, Sha'ir let out a somewhat suppressed and dull laugh. Is this the audience? He was seen through everything. Gao Shinam, she did everything that Sha'ir wanted to do, everything that was entangled, suppressed, and longed for. Why did Sha'ir insist on staying in the elves' gathering place? Why did he insist on joining the Church of Night? Wasn't it just to restrain himself? He had consumed so many extraordinary characteristics, he didn't trust himself, he wanted to kill, he wanted to mate, he wanted to vent his desires and madness. How much does he think? Just after going out once, he slept with Soren. When he killed the Sea King of the Storm Church, every cell in his body was excited. I can't even hide it from myself, so who else can I hide it from? As Sha'ir spoke, his breath became cold and a ferocious look appeared on his face. Doesn't he want to sleep with the elf queen? Think, why do you feel so ashamed and angry after your secrets are exposed? Because she was the widow of the elf king and the queen of the elves. He accepted her help and had such dark thoughts in his heart. How could he have the face to face Gao Shinam? How could he not be ashamed? The fourth age. Sha'ir looked at Gao Shinam, who was holding him with a complicated expression. Tyrannical, dark, cruel, all kinds of desires have been vented. Although, it seems that the other party vented more fiercely. He didn't even have the strength to move a finger. I said goodbye to myself. Shah said to himself. Every ancient god, or descendant god, basically came this way. The stronger you are, the crazier you become. If you don't let it out, will you drive yourself crazy? Gao Shinam leaned lazily against Shah and said. She had heard Shah talk about acting, but wasn't this a form of catharsis? Isn't playing the role of a natural disaster just a way to vent your desire for destruction? This is just the beginning. My willpower is so weak. If you indulge me once, I will indulge myself countless times. I'm okay with the vacillation, but I don't want to fool myself. Shah knew very well that a good person could not have any stains. If he was not a good person, but a corrupt person, then no one could accuse him of these stains, not even himself. Overthinking. Haven't you indulged yourself enough? I'm going to satisfy you right now. Gao Shinam rolled his eyes and turned over again. Shah was interrupted while he was thinking about philosophy, human nature, and life. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. Get out of the way. Shah pushed Gao Shinam hard. What a bullshit of indulgence. He needs to exercise moderation. He needs to exercise moderation. Don't you want to deceive yourself? You want more, don't you? You are laughing so happily. There seemed to be thunderclouds brewing in Gao Shinam's eyes. She raised her hand and the lights in the palace went out again, and thunder sounded like war drums. The fifth era. The light in Shah-Ir's eyes flickered like a candle in the wind. He can't sleep. Can this damn spiritual connection be severed? Can we live separately and separately? In the memory of Ghost, Steve, those fragments of wanton indulgence have become dull. Shah-Ir even felt that this method was quite crude. Pure lust, without any sense of immorality, seems to be just that. Shah-Ir said thoughtfully. He, as a secret praying man, looked directly at his fallen self for the first time. Pure sexual desire or killing is just indulgence. Only those things that make people struggle, desire, resist, contradict, suffer, and stimulate are depravity. Shah-Ir smiled and said that the depravity in his heart must be extremely filthy. How could he be so miserable? If you can't sleep, go out and have some fun. Who doesn't sleep at night? A faint light flashed and his figure disappeared. Backland Dock District. Shah-Ir floated in the air, condensed an ice spear in his hand, and threw it at the zombies running in front. Bang! A corpse controlled by Marich helped him block the attack, and his limbs were covered by the power of frost, becoming stiff and sluggish. Shah-Ir stretched out his hand in the air, and like twisting a dough stick, he rolled the lagging corpse into a ball, and threw it towards the ditch not far away. You temperance people can really run. He observed the spiritual environment around him, his figure became blurred again, and he jumped through the mirror and approached again. Suddenly, a huge skull head appeared in his path. Malice rose in Shah-Ir's eyes. The skeleton blocking his way was torn apart by two eerie ghost hands and returned to the spirit world wailing. He looked into the void in front of him, where there was an illusory figure with light blonde hair, blue eyes, wearing a dark gothic court dress and a small black soft hat. Sharon, I've been chasing you for so long, why don't you give me a response? Shah-Ir no longer paid attention to Marich. He shook hands with Sharon, and strands of resentment entangled her. He is not popular and there is only one girl he can date at night. Sharon glanced at Shah-Ir, said nothing, and then jumped on the mirror and fled in another direction. Is there a possibility that I'm just bluffing? Shah-Ir shook his crimson cloak, and his figure followed closely behind and disappeared. The next day, morning. Shah-Ir enjoyed his breakfast happily. Had a great time driving around the docklands with Sharon last night. For a moment, he was reluctant to throw away the vest of the Rose School. If you can't sleep at night, go catch Sharon and everyone will play the role of the vengeful spirit together. After breakfast, Bishop Electra came to visit. Maynard, the church has completed your review. Follow me to St. Samuel Cathedral. After meeting Archbishop Anthony, you can officially take up the position. Bishop Electra brings good news. Really? But the secret prayer. Shah asked Martin to go out and arrange the carriage, and then he looked a little uneasy, wanting to remind the bishop that he had mental problems and could not go out on field trips, so he could only sit in the office. You haven't gone through the stage of listening yet, you haven't been contaminated. The church will not abandon any devout believer of the goddess. Bishop Electra said gently in comfort. The secret praying people are indeed a problem, but given Shah's identity, he cannot be treated like an ordinary wild extraordinary person, nor can he be left alone. Therefore, Shah must join the church, which is also a disguised form of supervision and protection. North District. Street. Samuel's Cathedral. It was Shah's first time to come here. Just from the appearance of the church, it gave people the feeling that it was very suitable for checking in and taking photos. With the guidance of Bishop Electra, he prayed to the holy emblem of night hanging in the church, and followed the instructions to the core area of the church, where he met Archbishop Anthony Stevenson of the Backland diocese. The archbishop gave the impression of a night watchman from a horror movie, with a fair face and no beard, looking very clean and not old at all. Sir Anthony. Archbishop Anthony. Shah followed Bishop Electra and bowed. Mr. Maynard, you should have learned from Bishop Electra about the church's arrangements for you. Anthony Stevenson looked at Shah with deep eyes and said. Shah looked at Anthony and felt as if he was traveling alone in the forest at night. The high inspiration brought by the secret praying man made him feel part of the essence of the fear bishop of the Night Path Sequence 3. He somewhat enjoyed this slight fear, as if he was watching a horror movie, immersed in the viewing experience that made his body tremble slightly. Yes, Archbishop Anthony, the job assigned by the church is exactly what I am interested in. Shah showed the expected fear reaction, and waited until his emotions recovered before he spoke slowly. The Church of Evernight arranged for him to do clerical auxiliary work to accumulate experience, so that he can develop in many directions in the future, such as intelligence analyst, librarian, special project researcher, full-time liaison officer for communicating with other forces, etc. He had no complaints. Interns basically received the same treatment, and it was the same in every world. Well, welcome to the church, Mr. Maynard. Archbishop Anthony looked at Shah for a while and nodded. He did not sense any evil or corrupt aura, and when Shah prayed to the holy light of the goddess of night, there was no special reaction. Thus, Shah passed the final review. Bishop Electra heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Archbishop Anthony nod. Although he was confident that Shah could pass, he was still a little worried. Fortunately, there was no problem. Praise the goddess. Being able to join the church has always been something I've been looking forward to. Shah nodded his chest 4 times in praise. He still needs the church to restrain himself. He needs time to make his strength and state of mind match each other, whether it is for positive or negative. Don't be nervous. The church won't reject you. You just completed it in advance. Bishop Electra thought Shah was nervous, so she comforted him. This is also the benefit of a seminary background. If you are a secret praying person from outside, it is difficult to have the opportunity to join the Church of Night. When recruiting outsiders, there are many restrictions, but when recruiting family members, as long as their faith is still pure and there are no obvious physical abnormalities, they will be hired directly. Even if they are not related through their background, they will be given an interview opportunity. And it's basically confirmed that you'll pass, it's just a formality to confirm it. Let's go. I'll take you to familiarize yourself with your future work environment. Bishop Electra took Shah to complete the employment procedures, received some basic supplies, and got to know some colleagues within the church. When passing the area near Channy's Gate, Shah felt a chill, and the resentful souls in the island of the mind were instinctively afraid, as if there were countless traps hidden in the darkness behind the door. This is much safer than District 13. Shah withdrew his gaze. Even the cat from Haya's house ran in for fun and didn't bring anything out, so it was useless for him to watch. When he arrived at the independent office and independent workstation, the clergy robe that Shah was wearing was already adorned with the dark holy emblem. The weekly salary of Backland's civil servants was £4, £1 more than that of Tingen's civil servants. If he were a formal night watchman, he would receive subsidies for field work and on-duty work, but Shah was not a sleepless person, he still had to sleep at night, so he would rather not have this subsidy. The Maynard family's annual donation to the church is enough to pay Shah's salary for several years. Maynard, could you please help me sort out these telegrams? After sorting them out, put them in a special archive room. Opposite Shah, a woman about 28 years old, with a pretty face and a simple ponytail, came over with a huge cardboard box. Allison Gray, a Hermit Path Sequence 8 combat scholar. Shah is currently interning with this senior who also has a seminary background. Ms. Gray, let me move it. Shah took the initiative to take the box containing a lot of telegrams and helped move it to the table next to him. He thought the church's arrangement was quite interesting, putting a careful and experienced secret peeper together with a newly joined secret prayer. Thanks to you, Maynard. If I were alone, it would probably take me a long time to deal with all this work. Allison's eyes were full of kindness. Praise the goddess, the church finally sent me a helper, so I can have some time to make us a cup of black tea. The Backland diocese needs to connect with the Nighthawks teams in various places, and the civilian staff are also very busy. In addition, Allison is also responsible for intelligence analysis. She has long been looking forward to having an assistant. This assistant is also a junior in the seminary, which is perfect. Ms. Gray, could you please add a slice of lemon to my cup of tea? If there's any here. Shah was not polite either. He said that drinking tea and reading newspapers was his ideal life and the path to God was just a part-time job. As he spoke, he looked through the pile of telegrams, sorting them one by one, waiting for final archiving. Of course, the church never disappoints us in this regard. Ms. Gray put a slice of lemon in Shah's cup, then she picked up a carton of milk and poured the milk into another cup in an arc in the air. These are counted as daily benefits of the Church of Night, and the expenses can be reimbursed along with other items in the office. Shah classified them by time and region, and looked at the contents recorded above. Allison was leisurely brewing black tea without disturbing her. The telegrams or documents that Shah was asked to deal with were naturally of a low confidentiality level. They just needed to be classified and filed in the end. When Shah turned over a page, his attention was attracted by the content recorded on it. Klein Moretti, a student in the history department of Hawaii University, is a survivor of the suicide incident in the Antigonus family notebook. After observing him, I recruited him into the Night Watcher squad to temporarily do clerical work to make up for our lack of manpower. At the same time, I will prevent him from showing any abnormalities and harming more innocent lives. We will also continue to track down the whereabouts of the Antigonus family's notes. Captain of the Tingen Night Squad, Dunn Smith, June 28, 1349. Shah saw a familiar name and asked Allison curiously. Antigonus family notes. The Antigonus family in the Fourth Era. He did not hide his curiosity at all, and looked through several earlier telegrams. I don't know much about this notebook. From the information I can find, it originally belonged to that ancient family in the Fourth Era. Later, it fell into the hands of the Moss Ascetic Order, and then was obtained by the Steam Church. Then it disappeared. However, the members of the secret order have been looking for this notebook all the time. As a secret peeker, Allison could understand Shah's curiosity, and as a senior student, she was not stingy in answering his questions. Well, you probably don't know much about the secret order. I will slowly fill you in on this part of knowledge later. Their activities are very rare, and they mainly use the diviner path and the thief path. It seems that I am not the only one interested in the fourth epic notes. Your tea. Ms. Gray brought a cup of black tea to Shah's table and smiled. Thanks. I am somewhat interested. The notes from the fourth epic are much more valuable than the antiques from the fourth epic. In addition to being cultural relics, they are also of research value. Shah thanked him politely, not hiding his interest. In terms of calligraphy, which one is better, the notes of the demon wolf family or the notes of Emperor Russell? There are many more areas that interest me. For example, the secret order, the path of the diviners, and the path of the thieves. Shah-Ir's blue eyes, like an icy lake, looked at Allison curiously. Those secret organizations and extraordinary methods cannot be explained in a few words. I'll find a chance to tell you slowly later. Now, you should focus on your work. After reading this information and gaining a basic understanding, what do you think of the extraordinary events that occurred in Tingen? Allison Gray acted like a senior testing her junior, learning how to extract key information from various documents and provide effective clues for subsequent investigations into extraordinary events. This is also the duty of a professional intelligence analyst. Mr. Moretti, who was lucky enough to survive the extraordinary incident, may be the breakthrough point. 3 students from Tingen University, all of them died except him. He must have had some connection with the disappearance of the notebook. Shah-Ir sold Klein out directly. You're right. He might be the breakthrough point. If the power behind the notebook really used this poor gentleman to do something, then it is very likely that it will not let him go easily. Allison Gray said calmly that as a professional intelligence analyst, her intuition also told her that the breakthrough of the incident might lie in the lucky man named Klein Moretti. It was a pity that she couldn't go to the front line to investigate in person, because that was not her forte. I'm also very interested. Unfortunately, the notebook has disappeared. However, I believe that the night watchman in Tingen City will be able to find some new clues. The survivor who did not die in the suicide case caused by the notebook may be the breakthrough. As long as the notebook can be found again, the church will have a way to track it down. So everyone thinks there's something wrong with Klein, right? Shah-Ir felt a little embarrassed. As expected, the identity of the survivor accidentally involved in an extraordinary incident was still a bit eye-catching. Perhaps this was normal in the eyes of Dunn, who was used to facing all kinds of survivors, but in the eyes of non-frontline intelligence officers, this special feature was worthy of attention. Captain Dunn of Tingen invited him to join the Nighthawks as a form of protection. If the missing notebook wanted to hide itself, it would not risk targeting that gentleman again. Perhaps Allison felt that her tone just now was a little cold, so she added, "Does the church have a way to track that notebook?" Shah-Ir took a sip of tea and asked. This is also a necessary question. The taste of black tea is just right, sweet and sour. I wonder what sweet iced tea tastes like. There are many ways to track people. There are different methods for different situations, such as spiritualism, divination, or activating certain special seals. Do you know what a seal is? Ms. Gray said after thinking for a moment. This is also part of training new people. Shah-Ir is also an extraordinary person, and he will understand these things sooner or later. I know a little bit, but I don't have a concrete concept. Shah-Ir just thinks of himself as a newbie. Seals are usually divided into 4 levels. Level 3 seals are somewhat dangerous and should be used with caution. They can only be applied for by operations involving more than 3 people. We have the authority to understand them, and because of the special nature of our work, we even have the opportunity to learn a little bit of information about higher level seals. Level 2 sealed objects can be used with caution and restraint. Level 1 sealed objects are highly dangerous. Level 0 sealed object, extremely dangerous. Goddess Gray pointed to the crimson moon on the cover of Night Revelation, and said, even the most devout believers of the goddess may be bewitched by the power of the Level 0 sealed artifact. Remember, Level 0 sealed artifacts are usually referred to by code names, such as the Temples, 008. Ms. Gray didn't say much, as this was the only code name she knew. Are there any named after desserts? For example, 107 tiramisu, 1 bite will make you forget your loved ones, 2 bites will turn you into a demon wolf. Shah-Ir also interrupted the topic, not wanting Allison to talk too much, even if it was just a code name. I suggest you keep this sense of humor when you confess to the goddess. You need to remember that the reason a sealed item is called a sealed item is because, as long as it is not sealed, it will be a disaster if it is released. The negative effects of a sealed item are usually positively correlated with its power. Ms. Gray looked at Shah-Ire, who was obviously very interested, and warned her seriously. There is a rule in the secret peeper path: do whatever you want, but don't hurt. I also give you this sentence. Whether you are a secret peeper or a secret praying person, our eyes can see more. This allows us to keenly perceive danger, but it also brings us closer to danger. Sometimes, we need to learn to close our eyes so that we can better protect ourselves. Ms. Gray seemed to have thought of something, and her expression became a little gloomy. The church and the outside world are separated by a wall, but they seem to be two completely different worlds. We leave all the stories behind closed doors, and only show the world the unsullied holy symbol of the goddess. Shah-Ire propped up his head and listened to the elders in the church repeatedly reminding him of the dangers of the extraordinary world. A relatively complete social order is a good thing. The grassroots extraordinary people of the Church of Evernight are indeed a group of respectable guys. The sacrifices they make are worthy of entering the kingdom of the Evernight goddess after death. Shah-Ire felt deeply touched because, to some extent, he was the danger that Allison mentioned. You may have the talent to be a midnight poet. Allison Gray was touched, and she felt that it would be a pleasure to work with this junior in the future. Praise the goddess. ×2. Shah-Ire's mouth twitched slightly, and he tapped his chest 4 times again. If praising the goddess of night is not also a kind of praise and belief, which can improve the digestion progress of secret prayers and singers, Shah-Ire might not know which goddess he is praising. Aqua, the goddess of water, is also a goddess. On Shah-Ire's first day working in the church, with the guidance of his seniors and the care of his senior classmates, he basically didn't encounter any obstacles. Get off work on time at 5 p.m. As usual, he walked out of the church holding a copy of Apocalypse of the Night, and after walking some distance, he boarded the Maynard family's carriage. Although this clergyman's identity was just for the sake of experiencing life, Shah-Ire was still quite serious. He deliberately asked the carriage to stop on a distant street instead of asking Martin to arrange the carriage to stop directly at the door of St. Samuel's Cathedral. This is not out of respect for the goddess of night, but out of respect for one's current profession. Master, the lady asked you to go back. She has prepared a celebration banquet for you. Martin said respectfully after helping Shah-Ire into the car. Going back. Shah-Ire did not refuse. On the way back to the West District from the North District, he would inevitably pass through Queens, so it would not be a problem to go back on the way. As for the banquet, this was also Mrs. Maynard's good intention. There was no need for him to make the other party sad in this matter. The carriage moved slowly. Master, do you need me to rent a new villa in the North District? Martin asked Shah-Ire. St. Samuel's Cathedral is in the North District, and after Shah-Ire graduated early, it became a bit inconvenient for him to continue living in the West District. Not for now. Senior Gray told me that our work is special. Normal working hours are from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., with a 1-hour lunch break in between. Working hours will only be extended during emergency tasks and important events. There is no need to consider moving now. Shah-Ire said this with a strange expression. 8 hours a day. Is this the protection period for novices? Otherwise, what difference would it make whether the Church of Night had him or not? Master, Madam has ordered a brand new dress for you. Martin continued. No, can that dress be more beautiful than the one I'm wearing? Shah-Ire lifted the sleeves of his black and red robe. He really likes the clergy robes of the Church of Night. They are really beautiful. There may be many noble ladies attending this banquet. Martin also thought that his young master looked very handsome, so he simply skipped the previous topic. For example, Shah-Ire tapped the table with his fingers. Ms. Audrey Hall, the apple of Earl Hall's eye. Martin's voice rose unconsciously. Oh. Shah-Ire said, oh. After getting along with the elf queen, he became less fascinated by these women. He no longer wanted to give them gifts or show off his knowledge of mysticism to gain their admiration. He no longer had that natural impulse, as if it had been beaten away. Master, are you not interested in Miss Audrey? I heard that a prince tried to woo her. Martin felt a little regretful when he saw Shah-Ire's lack of reaction. It seemed that the young master was still like this. He had thought that the appearance of Ms. Panacea would make the young master change. Although her appearance, temperament, family background, and personality are all good, she is not as charming as Panacea, not as friendly as Alice, and not as knowledgeable as Senior Grey. So just treat her as an ordinary noble lady. If there is a chance, I will certainly not refuse to dance with her. Shah-Ayr said this while keeping a calm mind. Then, Master, besides Miss Audrey, there is also. Martin was about to introduce himself again, but was interrupted by Shah-Ayr. Wait, Martin, you don't need to introduce yourself, I know what you mean. Shah-Ayr was speechless. Was he planning to let him choose the woman he liked on the social stage? Isn't the average marriage age of upper-class men in Backland still between 25 and 30? He is still far from the average. Queens, the Maynard family residence. Shah-Ayr saw Mrs. Maynard, who was wearing a dress and waiting for him. This is a middle-aged woman with a plump figure and fair skin. Next to her is a thinner woman, who is Congressman Maynard's sister. The young man on the other side is Mrs. Maynard's eldest son. Mother, I'm back. Shah-Ayr walked forward and gently hugged Mrs. Maynard. It didn't seem too inappropriate for him to call her mother. He felt that what Senior Grey had just said, do whatever you want, but don't hurt anyone, made sense. He was not Aemon, and he didn't play the horror game. You really gave me a surprise. Mrs. Maynard hugged Shah-Ayr. She looked at the holy emblem of night hanging on Shah-Ayr, and her voice was filled with surprise and pride. Bishop Electra took better care of me, otherwise I wouldn't have graduated early. Shah-Ayr didn't have much to say. Even if he didn't apply for graduation early, he would just be passing the classes. The seminary trains devout clergy, not outstanding scientists. My dear, go change your clothes first. The party will start soon. Mrs. Maynard said. No, I'll just wear my clergy robes. Shah-Ayr shook his head. The identity of the Church of Evernight could ward off a lot of trouble. For example, the church's regulations prohibited excessive drinking, the consumption of distilled liquor, and only a small amount of champagne and red and white wine. He thought it was fine, he wasn't a big fan of beer. Shah-Ayr can refuse many things she doesn't like under the banner of the goddess of night. From this perspective, faith is not without benefits. That's it, then. Go get ready. When you attend the banquet later, you should put the apocalypse of the night back in your room. Your room is always cleaned by a maid. Mrs. Maynard said as she looked at the book her youngest son was holding in his arms. Shah-Ayr nodded, said hello to his aunt and brother beside him, and took Martin to his room. This child is much calmer than before. He is now a formal clergyman, so of course he can't be like before. It would be great if he is willing to move back this time. When Shah-Ayr walked up the stairs, he still heard the discussions downstairs. He calmly returned to his room on the second floor and tidied his clothes without any fluctuation in his eyes. Evening. Luxurious carriages stopped at the door of the villa. Shah-Ayr and his eldest brother entertained the many visiting guests. Mrs. Maynard sent invitations to many people, mainly those from the new party. Madam Catherine, welcome. He gave a standard salute to the noble lady in front of him. This lady looked like a mature version of Audrey, more elegant and more beautiful. The only flaw was the faint marks left by time at the corners of her eyes. Even after careful makeup, some traces could still be seen. My mother will be delighted to have you here. You're welcome too, Miss Audrey. Shah-Ayr naturally looked at the blonde girl holding Lady Catherine's arm. Beautiful long golden hair, jewel-like blue eyes, noble and elegant temperament, expensive but not overpowering jewelry, and a gorgeous light green dress. Under the light, the girl seems to reflect a brilliance that is no less dazzling than that of the Mediterranean. Shah-Ayr glanced at his elder brother beside him. Was he really watching too? Since everyone was watching, his behavior was not abrupt. But don't you think Lady Catherine is more elegant? Audrey is not yet an adult. He looked at Audrey and found that the girl was also blinking her bright eyes at him. What threat could such a small audience pose? Shah-Ayr nodded politely and looked away. After seeing the golden retriever led by the maid Anne, he squatted down and stroked it twice. After obtaining Anne's consent, he fed Susie 2 slices of sausage. After all the guests entered, Mrs. Maynard raised her glass to the guests and said, "Let's toast to the protagonist of the evening." Many guests at the banquet raised their glasses and looked at Shah Iyer, but this did not affect Shah Iyer's mood. He smiled a shy and joyful smile. "You are all welcome to this banquet. I also hope to share this joy with you. Let us praise the goddess together. May the goddess protect every guest tonight and make their dreams come true." Shah Iyer drew a crimson moon on his chest, although he remembered that the goddess of night was the goddess of nightmares. Praise the goddess. Times N. The other guests also tapped their chests 4 times, drawing a crimson moon. In such an environment, Shah Iyer was somewhat skeptical. If he was not a time traveler, if he had studied in a seminary since childhood and worked in a church when he grew up, how devout would he be in his belief in the goddess of night? Even among the nobles present, Shah Iyer could see that most of them were very devout in their belief in the goddess of night, especially the ladies and young ladies. After the greetings, there was the opening dance. Shah Iyer walked towards Audrey Hall. Among so many noble ladies, the one he was most familiar with was Miss Justice, although it was only a one-sided familiarity. "Miss Audrey, can I ask you to dance?" Shah Iyer saluted in a standard manner. He also decided not to return to Queens or go to the north side, and that he would be freer living alone in the west side. "It's my pleasure." Audrey took a look at the young master of the Maynard family. He had dark brown hair, light blue eyes, and a sickly pale complexion, but he did not look sickly. There were faint dark circles under his eyes, perhaps because he did not sleep well last night. She held out her hand and refused without any disappointment. If the blonde girl knew what Shah Iyer said about her in front of Martin, she would definitely be very dissatisfied. Shah Iyer led Audrey to the dance floor. After feeling the secret gaze, he looked back and saw a big golden retriever that looked very innocent. The humanized innocence on that dog's face. He smiled at Audrey and said, "Ms. Audrey, your pet is so cute." "Susie." Audrey was surprised and politely thanked Shah Iyer for the compliment. Following the music, Shah Iyer began to move his feet to chase the melody. He was not without experience, and the elves were also good at singing and dancing. "Miss Audrey, it looks very spiritual and reminds me of my Bruce who unfortunately passed away. I wonder if you would like to give it away. If so, I will give you a gift of equal value in return." Sure attempts to kidnap the future fantasy dog. "I'm sorry, Mr. Maynard, Susie is my friend. I don't have such an idea for the time being." Audrey remained polite, but she was a little nervous. Why did this gentleman keep mentioning Susie? Audrey thought of Shah Iyer's official background in the Church of Night, and for a moment she felt a little scared of herself. If it weren't for the muscle memory from years of dancing and Shah Iyer's attention, she might have made a small fool of herself. "I once had a hunting dog, but it got sick and I buried it myself. Ms. Audrey, you should also pay more attention to your health. The smog in Backland has been getting worse recently. It is not only harmful to pets with a keen sense of smell, but it will also have a negative impact on your health." Shah Iyer said caring words, but he could feel that the little hand he was holding was a little nervous. He didn't know what she was thinking, but it seemed quite interesting. "You are such a thoughtful gentleman." Audrey kept smiling politely, treating it as just a normal greeting. "In fact, if I wasn't worried about being treated as an outlier, I would really want to wear a mask when going out. Of course, those workers are the ones who need masks more than I am. Although, their boss has no intention of providing them with masks." When Shah Iyer talked about masks, he thought of the past 3 years. He still had several boxes of masks at home that had not been opened. "It's a really unfortunate thing. I think the gentleman in the cabinet will soon take notice of this." Audrey also feels that masks are very practical, but obviously her tutor does not allow her to attend parties or wear a mask when going out. Then there are too many issues that they need to pay attention to. Shah Iyer didn't take Audrey's comforting words seriously. Perhaps, he thought, he could open a factory to make masks. After Zombie, Jason and Werewolf Tell took down the Hilly party, girls who needed a job to support themselves would have another option. At least this earns more than gluing matchboxes together. It's just a piece of cake anyway. Mr. Maynard, have you heard? While Shaw was thinking about the details, Audrey asked in a tone that could arouse curiosity. What did you hear? Shaw looked at the blonde girl who was lower than him and asked. I heard a lot of ladies gathered together and talked about how they had come up with a solution to alleviate the problem of declining efficiency of government departments in the kingdom due to elections. Audrey said casually. Did you hear that? Or did you say that? Yeah, what good ideas did they come up with? Shaw showed some curiosity and distrust just right. By holding a unified government employee examination, we can make up for the lack of administrative efficiency. Audrey said with a confident smile. That's a great idea. The gentlemen in the cabinet are always good at turning examinations into the backyard of the aristocracy. Now recruiting them, I mean unified employees serving the government, which can also save them some trouble. The person who can come up with this idea and is willing to share it must be a kind-hearted lady with foresight and wisdom. Shaw praised with some amazement. He looked at Audrey with a, what do you think? Look, waiting for her approval. Ahahaha, she is indeed very far-sighted and insightful. Audrey felt a little embarrassed by Shaw's gaze. She silently apologized to Mr. Fool in her heart and then gave him a compliment in a roundabout way. Shaw chuckled and danced with Audrey. As the music progressed, the two of them finished dancing. According to etiquette, he asked as usual. Do you need me to send you back? Or do you have any other ideas? Just send me back to where I came from. Audrey smiled modestly. She wanted to go back to her original place and continue playing the role of an audience member. Although it was interesting to observe this gentleman, she decided to let go of this gentleman who seemed a little tired. Although the gentleman's reaction was very natural, Audrey could detect a vague sense of incongruity, as if he had suddenly come to the banquet hall from the racecourse without even having time to change his clothes, and had to perform hard to maintain etiquette. He seemed to adapt to this environment and was not so repulsive, but some subtle movements seemed superficial. He had not returned to real life from the atmosphere of the racecourse. Is this the extraordinary person from the church who just dealt with an extraordinary incident? Audrey was not sure whether her observation was correct and planned to find other targets to continue training. Audrey was not sure whether her observation was correct and planned to find other targets to continue training. Shaw saw that the girl wanted to change her observation target, so he sent Audrey back to her original place. After the girl politely thanked him, he extended an invitation to the girl's mother. My beautiful lady, may I invite you to dance? Of course, Mr. Maynard. Lady Catherine was obviously accustomed to all kinds of scenes. She nodded to her daughter beside her, put her hand on Shaw's hand, and let him lead her to the dance floor. Miss Audrey didn't think much about it. She looked away, took a glass of wine from the waiter, and politely rejected a man who wanted to invite her to dance. When Shaw's eldest brother saw the flash of fatigue on Audrey's face, he politely expressed his understanding and took the initiative to stand beside the girl and help dissuade other gentlemen who wanted to come forward. On the dance floor, Shaw thought that he should not forget to work hard even when he was relaxing. He hummed along with the music leisurely. There were no specific lyrics and no deep emotions, but the melody seemed to be praising the sun. His voice was very soft and was drowned out by the melody of the music. Only Lady Catherine, who was closest to him, could hear the singers singing and gained some positive effects, making her dance steps more flexible. You have a beautiful singing voice, Mr. Maynard. Lady Catherine praised enthusiastically after Shaw stopped the melody. The song of the sun always makes those who hear it cheerful and brightens their mood. I think it goes well with your dazzling blonde hair. They are both things that can make people feel happy. Shaw was not being modest, but after singing, he always felt a little uncomfortable. The burning sensation in his throat and the dark desire growing in his heart intertwined, making him suddenly want to tear apart the hypocritical etiquette of the ball. The Sea King's control over the sea area and the clumsy role-playing game of reality here made him try his best to suppress his crazy thoughts. He had a mixed feeling of being irritable but not irritable. That's something I'm proud of. Lady Catherine was very particular about her hair. But when she was changing dance steps, her eyes inadvertently swept over her daughter, and her eyes dimmed for a moment. It's just that what I'm most proud of now has become my treasure. The glory of the eulogist remained, and Catherine's concerns about her age were soon overshadowed by her love for her daughter. It is indeed a gem, but we all know that the value of a gem does not depend entirely on the quality of the gem, but also on the emotions and memories it carries. You are more charming than her. This is the temperament that your experience and cultivation have given you. If it weren't for etiquette, I would actually like to invite you to dance with me for the opening dance. Shah Ayar maintained the rhythm of his breathing, and there was some sincerity in his words. Miss Justice's eyes were as pure as a mirror, making him not want to see himself in his current state. Although Lady Catherine's eyes were also beautiful, they were stained with some color due to the passage of time, allowing him to avoid seeing his current self. He began to distract himself and think, if he prayed to the eternal blazing sun, would he be considered a qualified singer or a qualified secret prayer? You are such a thoughtful gentleman. Indeed, the lady seemed to be quite pleased with Shah Ayar's somewhat straightforward words. That's because I know exactly what I'm doing. Inviting you to dance naturally requires me to take care of your emotions and not make you feel uncomfortable. Otherwise, why wouldn't I just pick up the plate and use the food on the table to please my stomach? Shah Ayar's tone became exaggerated, reminding himself what he was doing. In front of this more mature noble lady, he was too lazy to maintain the etiquette of conversation in the social circle. His self-positioning began to become somewhat distorted. The conflict between the two low-sequence extraordinary characteristics intensified the sense of fragmentation of time and space dislocation. Lady Catherine hummed, realizing that Shah Ayar had more to say. I want to ask, have you ever heard of the Dawn Rooster? If you have any clues about the red crest or blood of the Dawn Rooster, then I will try to say more good things. Shah Ayar simply changed the topic to the extraordinary world and didn't want to talk about any more topics about praising beauty and quality. This is the extraordinary material needed for Sun Pathway Sequence 7. The Hall family has the blood of the ghost shark, and Earl Hall is the third largest shareholder of Intis Suchit Bank, so it is very likely that he also has this material. Whether it happened or not, Lady Catherine should have heard about it more or less, and could have talked the subject to death. Is this why you asked me to dance? When Mrs. Catherine heard Shah Ayar asking about the extraordinary materials, her gentle eyes became deep. No. Shah Ayar shook his head. Although he had expected it, the look still made him uncomfortable. What was there in the Hall family that was worthy of his concern? Lady Catherine did not speak, but her eyes were full of distrust and vigilance. Shah Ayar's question seemed a bit presumptuous to the tactful Rune. Their relationship was not yet at the point where direct questioning was necessary, and it lacked the necessary preparation. Well, this is just to confuse you. Actually, what I want is more pure. Shah Ayar suddenly smiled, and thinking that he was up to no good, he lightly stroked the inside of her palm twice. I felt something strange in the palm of my hand. The scrutiny in Lady Catherine's eyes froze, and the index finger wearing the ring curled up slightly. Ma'am, what do you think? Shah Ayar moved closer with a sense of mischief, using his height advantage to create a psychological illusion of being close. No. Catherine looked at the intimidating eyes and inexplicably flinched, taking a step back slightly. Shah Ayar still held her hand as if they were dancing together, following the melody, and did not allow her to distance herself as she wished. I just wanted to inquire. If Madam has any clues, the price can be negotiated. If Madam wants to sell it, I will welcome it and look forward to it. Shah Ayar did not continue, but stopped following the melody. He is really going backwards as he gets older. Do you want me to take you back? He took a half step back and asked politely. Lady Catherine nodded slightly. She had calmed down by now. She looked at the strange young gentleman with complicated eyes, as if she wanted to say something but stopped herself. Then let's go. Don't misunderstand. Shah Ayar led Lady Catherine back. After the broken window effect, Catherine had let down some unnecessary vigilance against Shah Ayar. Now, After hearing what Shao said, she felt that perhaps the other party simply wanted to take over Li Mingshang. I'm just teasing you. Anyway, you are a mature lady. You won't lose your composure even if you are surprised, and it won't cause you any psychological trauma. You have met too many men before, so you won't take this little scene to heart. You won't even bother with a boy like me who could be your son. So, I am teasing you, openly and without regard to your wishes. Shao whispered some impolite words. He could actually deny it or explain it, since he didn't do anything specific just now. But he suddenly didn't want to deny it and didn't want to lie. There was nothing he couldn't admit. He was just teasing, but the loser didn't dare to admit it. Boom, boom, boom. Shao raised his hand and knocked his head lightly. Is this a disease? Don't be so proud of me for no reason. Isn't it obvious whether this is right or wrong? It seems I shouldn't sing. Shao found some reason. He felt that there was a fight between the singer and the secret prayer. He accidentally kicked him and punched Lady Catherine. He thought quickly about how to solve the problem. Let's go to Backland's orphanage tomorrow. Look at the innocent kindness and innocent evil of the orphans. Look at yourself through these mirrors. In a short period of time, Shao has developed a set of psychological treatment plans. Lady Catherine looked at Shao and saw some inexplicable actions and words. She did not dare to act rashly for a moment, for fear of irritating the other party. She was not afraid that the other party had malicious intentions, but if the other party had mental problems, that would be truly terrifying. I'm sorry, those last words were a bit personal and have nothing to do with you. Maybe I want to. Never mind, just think of it as me teasing you. Shao thought about it, was too lazy to explain, and just accepted it. He didn't know how Klein could become a god within 3 years and still maintain his original intention. He felt like he was about to break down at sequence 9. My thinking is clear, but I just can't find my position clearly. It doesn't matter. In fact, you are already considered polite among the other impolite gentlemen I have met. Catherine held Shao-Ir's fingertips and pinched them hard, wanting to see if Shao-Ir would become angry or show any obvious abnormalities. Shao-Ir just smiled apologetically at her, his icy blue eyes shining with golden light, as if the sun was shining on them, bringing courage and strength to those who saw them. Catherine suddenly felt less nervous, and her heart gradually calmed down. Her mind became active, and she was no longer willing to think about the dark side. She recalled that although Shao-Ir's words were very excessive, his tone was too flat and his voice was too light, coupled with his young face, he did not have much lethality. If I think about it carefully, this is a public place, and the other party's mother and family are all there. Maybe I am really overthinking it. She is not young anymore, and it is impossible for her to mean that. This must have been a white-collar joke. The other person saw that she was worried about her age and was trying to comfort her. Haha, you're right. I'm old enough to be your mother. I really shouldn't argue with you. Although Lady Catherine asked tentatively, her fingertips unconsciously pressed harder. She was obviously reluctant to bring up the issue of age, which was her pain point. Do I have to tell you directly that I want to invite you to cheat before you believe that you heard it right? Be more confident. Your inner radiance has never faded. I always feel that people age too quickly, but their hearts are still young, and their bodies are like they can't wait to get off work. I can selectively ignore the wrinkles at the corners of your eyes and discover other beautiful parts of you. Shao-Ir blinked his eyes, and his long eyelashes seemed to cast a shadow. He really thought about whether he should have a spiritual relationship with Lady Catherine. The feeling of dating his mother without telling Miss Justice was a bit decadent, and it made him want to give it a try. Lady Catherine's breathing quickened a little. The change in the other party's attitude was a little abrupt, but it seemed to have a magical attraction. Her finger with the ring on it did not feel relaxed, and she looked at Shao-Ir's reaction nervously. Don't be nervous, just treat it as a normal chat. Your private chats are probably more wild. Shao-Ir didn't know why Catherine was nervous. Their voices were hidden in the music and could not be heard. Catherine choked and she was no longer nervous. She completely relaxed. You can learn more about the noble circle of Intis when you have time. Also, don't mention age again, otherwise you will really make me angry, Mr. Maynard. Catherine rolled her eyes at Shaw Eyre. She wondered what was going on at first, but after a moment of impulse, she felt a little regretful. It turned out that this was a novice who didn't understand, tacit understanding, and made her worry in vain. Intis's circle. What's the use? If it's direct, then this is direct enough. When Shaw Eyre saw Catherine's reaction, he looked at the finger with the ring in a daze, but he didn't feel regretful. When the two of them walked to the edge of the ball, when no one was paying attention, he put his arm around her waist and asked, "Don't you think your behavior is ridiculous? If you want a hug, I can grant you that." Catherine looked at Shaw Eyre speechlessly. A little bit of bad taste. Shaw Eyre said this with a hint of malice, his eyes inadvertently sweeping over a big golden retriever that was looking at this place, and he smiled at Susie. "Who do you want to show this to?" Mrs. Catherine originally thought that Shaw Eyre was trying to be clever and create some trouble for himself, but then she saw her daughter's pet dog looking at her. She looked at Shaw Eyre with a subtle look. "Let your dog be the audience tonight. It didn't come up and bite me, that's good," Shaw Eyre said as he let go of her hand. Susie's calm expression made him feel like something was missing. Does this seem normal to the dog? Lady Catherine did not speak, but looked at Shaw Eyre with more pity. She chose her words carefully and said, "I heard that Beyonders may have some psychological problems. You can go to the bishop of the church for help." "I will. This does require some reliable predecessors to give some correct guidance." Shaw Eyre rubbed his cheek. Gauss Sheenham's guidance method, which is to indulge him in whatever he wants and let him experience everything so that he will understand everything, is like a poison to Shaw Eyre now. That is indeed effective. Having seen everything, you will naturally remain calm. However, it is impossible to achieve that effect in a short period of time. He needs to first develop a set of principles, a set of life principles that apply to all environments, no matter whether you are strong or weak, and no matter where you are. As long as you can listen to it. Lady Catherine waved to the messenger and took a glass of champagne from the tray held by the messenger. The reflection of the glass revealed the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes. She was slightly stunned and handed the champagne in her hand to Shaw Eyre and asked for another glass for herself. Weakness is not an obstacle to survival, arrogance is. Mr. Bishop may be able to give me some help. And if I take the initiative to find Mr. Bishop, you will keep it a secret for me, and neither of us will be embarrassed. Shaw Eyre took a sip of champagne and felt that he just lacked an anchor. Are we all guardians, but also a bunch of poor wretches facing madness all the time? This sentence won't work. This is Klein's anchor point. He is not a guardian either, he is a traveler. Catherine was a little surprised, but not at the famous saying of Emperor Russell. Rather, she had not expected that the young man actually intended to confess to the bishop of the church. "My dear, the environment of the seminary makes you a little unfamiliar with some of the rules of the social circle, but your faith in the goddess is something more precious. If you take the initiative to ask Mr. Bishop for help, I will forget what happened today." Lady Catherine did not insist. She was a respectable person, and she even took the initiative to change to a more intimate address. Of course she would forget what happened before, but she was led by the nose the whole time. How could she let this boy go easily? "Also, you are wrong about one thing." Hearing this, Shaw Eyre looked at the big Miss Justice, and a pure smile exactly like Audrey's suddenly appeared on the corner of her lips. What is she laughing at? Shaw Eyre frowned slightly, but before he could understand the meaning, Lady Catherine had already pressed him into her arms, and the base note of iris perfume, carrying the body temperature accumulated over the years, blew on his face. This time, there was no perfect opportunity for the secret praying man to rely on inspiration to choose, and many guests at the banquet saw this scene. This is the privilege that time bestows upon women. Lady Catherine's fingertips faintly brushed across the back of his neck, her tone full of pride at having turned the tables. "You should show respect to your elders." Shaw Eyre found it difficult to understand for a moment. Is this something a middle-aged woman who has been involved in various social activities for many years would do? The orchestral music in the banquet hall changed into a lyrical slow movement at this moment. Catherine patted Shaw Ayer's back and then separated with a gentle smile like an elder blessing a younger person. The guests were confused at first, but then they understood after seeing Lady Catherine draw a crimson moon. Madame Maynard exchanged glances with the woman next to her. In Loan tradition, this represented a blessing to the younger generation in the name of the goddess. Now is the time for party change, and the new party has naturally reached a consensus to compete with the Conservative Party for more seats. Mrs. Maynard specially held the banquet this time, and she also wanted to gain more support for her husband who was in Tingen. Mrs. Hall was willing to bring her daughter to the banquet, which in itself represented a certain attitude of the Hall family. Now she just expressed her support in a more rune-style way. Shaw Ayer looked at the clergy robe that he had not changed, and could only draw a crimson moon, revealing a look that said, "I lost to you," and gave a standard salute to the woman in front of him. This time the other party picked up the dignity that was almost dropped on the ground. On the other side, Audrey looked at Susie and asked, "What happened?" Susie shook her head, indicating that she didn't understand and she was just a dog. "The dinner is over." Audrey followed her mother back to Hall Villa. After returning to her room, the blonde girl looked at the big golden retriever, Susie. "Audrey, what's wrong?" Susie asked, looking at Audrey in confusion. "Susie, have you found anything special about Mr. Maynard, the new member of the church?" Audrey looked at Susie and asked. She felt that Mr. Maynard was quite different. Her mother's attitude toward him was one thing, and the gentleman's own subtle self-contradictory feelings were another. "He said hello to me, fed me sausage and noticed that I was looking at him." Susie thought for a moment and said, "He was able to notice your observation." Audrey frowned slightly. No one would pay special attention to a dog. Thinking about what Shaw Ayer had told her, that he wanted to buy Susie, did he really find Susie special? "Well, he smiled at me then, and he hugged your mother," Susie said, recalling the scene. "It's rare for it to encounter humans who are so polite to a dog." Quote? Audrey looked at Susie with a puzzled look on her face. When did this happen? How come she didn't know? The next day, amid the sound of the carriage rolling over the cobblestone road, Shaw Ayer flipped through the Apocalypse of the Night in his hand. He certainly didn't expect the goddess of night to redeem him. He just wanted to know what choices other people would make when faced with such a problem. Perhaps the clergy of the church would have some good suggestions. It's not embarrassing to ask others for help. He is a secret prayer person, and secret prayer people who actively seek help are more trustworthy. Street. Samuel's Cathedral. Shaw Ayer looked at Senior Gray with a heavy expression. What happened? Senior Gray was a little overwhelmed. Did she assign too much work to her junior? "Ms. Gray, I seem to be ill." Shaw Ayer covered his chest with one hand, brewing his emotions. "Are you sick? What's going on? Is it serious? The church has a professional pharmacist. I'll ask her to check you out." Ms. Gray looked a little panicked when she saw Shaw Ayer's expression. She knew that her junior was not the type to talk nonsense. He was holding his chest with a look of sorrow on his face, and he must be in a lot of pain. "Maynard, what's wrong with you?" Gray Senpei asked worriedly while holding Sher's hand. I have the disease of wanting to offend other people's wives," Shaw Ayer said with a sad expression. He wondered if the church would expel him for such a ridiculous reason. The Book of Night Revelation does not mention that this is a violation of the teachings of the Goddess of Night. "Maynard, please say it again. I didn't hear you clearly." Ms. Gray was stunned. She seemed to have heard something hallucination, and pinched her thigh, and asked uncertainly. I want to possess someone else's wife. Senior Gray, please save me." Shaw Ayer grabbed Senior Gray's hand as if he was grabbing the last straw. "Senior sister, you are the only one who can save me now." Hiss. Allison Gray took a deep breath and pulled her hand out of Shaw Ayer's. She tightened her dark windbreaker, took 2 steps back, looked at Shaw Ayer with a complicated tone and said, "I'm sorry, Junior, I can't cure your illness. Stay here for a while, don't move. I'll find someone who can cure this disease for you." After Senior Gray finished speaking, she fled. After leaving the room, she took 2 deep breaths and patted her cheeks lightly. Her usually calm brain was now a little stuck. "Leaving now?" Shah-Ir shook his head, picked up the teacup and started to make black tea. He is obviously a 28-year-old, secret peeper, but he didn't even ask who he wanted to violate first. His curiosity is not strong enough. How can he go far on the path of hermit? Not long after, Senior Gray came in with Bishop Electra. Shah-Ir looked at Senior Gray in confusion. "Where is my psychiatrist? Why did you ask the bishop to come over?" "Bishop Electra, I'm going out first." Senior Gray couldn't stand Shah-Ir's puzzled look. She whispered something, walked out directly and closed the door. Boom. The door closed and the atmosphere inside became a little subtle. Bishop Electra looked at the students he had personally recruited, took a deep breath, pointed to a chair beside him and said, "Sit down and talk." Upon hearing this, Shah-Ir sat down obediently and placed a cup of black tea on the bishop's table. "What happened?" Bishop Electra glanced at the black tea, looked at Shah-Ir and asked. "I am guilty. When I see beautiful ladies, even if they already have husbands, I still want to possess them." As Shah-Ir spoke, he actually thought of Mrs. Summer who lived on Minsk Street. He closed his eyes. The landlady never seemed to have annoyed him. Well, if he doesn't take advantage of the opportunity, no one else can either. He is relatively tolerant towards himself but strict towards others. Be good people, everyone. Just a married lady. What about unmarried ladies and young ladies? Bishop Electra did not rebuke. His voice was calm, the invisible waves dissipated naturally, the surroundings became dim, and a feeling of tranquility and peace emerged. "Single lady, even if I want to possess you, it is a reasonable pursuit and I don't need to worry." Shah-Ir's irritability seemed to be relieved, and he answered with his eyes closed. "Do you know why you are like this?" Bishop Electra nodded. At least he knew to ask for help when he encountered problems. It seems that he still has a basic understanding of good and evil. The bishop thought so when he saw the holy scripture of night in Shah-Ir's arms. "The depravity in my heart, the desire in my heart, the evil thoughts in my heart. The power of the secret praying people only allows me to see them more intuitively. Because it is beautiful, I want to possess it. Because I want to do it, I am self-contradictory." As Shah-Ir spoke, his brows gradually furrowed. He tried to take a deep breath to calm his expression. It suddenly occurred to him that the hanged man path not only represents the power of fall, but also represents the sacrifice of bearing fall. So can it be understood this way? He is responsible for the fall, others are responsible for the sacrifice, and he is the one who takes on this sacrifice. The secret prayer allowed Shah-Ir to intuitively feel the evil thoughts in his heart. The singer made Shah-Ir a little serious and he was unwilling to get away with this issue. In fact, it is not that complicated. It is simply a question of whether extraordinary people should act recklessly towards ordinary people. The blood on the sea will give the answer. Of course the strong will severely humiliate the weak. Wow! Shah-Ir looked up, but his sight was blocked by the black dome. He could not see the sky or the starry sky. He quickly lowered his head. The death in the blood of the original time and space is not unjust. Mr. Maynard, I understand your situation to some extent. When Shale told all this, Bishop Electra understood the problem Shale was facing. The arrogance of the extraordinary towards ordinary people. This is more or less the case with extraordinary people who have not received church training. They regard themselves as beings who possess supernatural powers, without realizing the sacrifices and dangers behind this power. Now, follow me, recite after me, let us pray to the goddess together, tell her your troubles, and confess to her the evil in your heart. Bishop Electra looked at Shah-Ir gently and said, as a bishop of the church, he is no stranger to this common psychological problem, whether it is superficial or internal. For true believers of the night, the solution is usually very simple. First, join the night watchman, fight danger in the dark, and polish away your impetuousness. But it is not appropriate now. He will consider letting Shal go on missions with the church's Nighthawks team to hone his skills and gain some experience. Second, confess to the goddess and seek inner peace. In this confusing, tempting, terrible, beautiful and complicated world, only the goddess is absolutely real and can make people feel the peace from the heart. Goddess of the night, who is higher than the stars and longer than eternity, you are the Lord of Crimson, the Mother of Secrets, the Queen of Disaster and Fear, the Lord of Sleep and Silence. I pray to you and confess my sins to you. Bishop Electra drew a crimson moon on his chest, and then he stood in front of Shal and confessed to the Goddess of Night. He poured out all his evil thoughts to her without reservation, and prayed that she would bestow salvation and forgiveness on him. I am not guilty of this crime, am I? What if this prayer is automatically recorded? Shal looked at Bishop Electra in embarrassment. Does the night goddess business need to be so comprehensive? Bishop Electra also knew about Shur's dilemma. He felt that as a guide, he should give correct guidance, which could be regarded as a kind of inheritance. So he began to take the lead in confession. Shal was about to refuse politely, but when he heard Bishop Electra confess to the goddess that he had also had thoughts about a certain lady, he knew that he had to pray, otherwise the bishop would definitely kill him. It doesn't matter. The Goddess of Night is not Mr. Fool, and the responses you get when you pray to her are basically automatic. Shal comforted himself, drew a crimson moon on his chest, and prayed reluctantly. Goddess of the Night, who is higher than the stars and longer than eternity, you are the Lord of Crimson, the Mother of Secrets, the Queen of Disaster and Fear, the Lord of Sleep and Silence. I pray to you. I want to satisfy my desires to the fullest, as naturally as appreciating the beauty of the world like appreciating the blooming of flowers. I want to disregard the wishes of others and use my freedom to infringe on their freedom. I want to live in the most luxurious room and live like an emperor. Even the queen of a country would have to lower her head when I lift up her skirt, hiding her disgust and shyness behind her falling hair. Shal voice became softer and softer, gradually deviating from reality. I still have an ignorant yearning for the moon flower. I want to plant night herb next to it and show off to others that my moon flower blooms like the moon and my night herb exudes the unique fragrance of the night. I ask you to forgive my sins. After Shal finished praying, he looked towards Bishop Electra. The first half of his prayer that could be heard was at least a standard confessional prayer. Bishop Electra nodded with satisfaction. He could feel that Shal spirit had become calmer, which was worth his personal demonstration. The room became dim, and the bishop took the initiative to sing a hymn. We will look up at the night sky. Tenderly say the name, Goddess of the Night. There are no other words except the Goddess of Night. Goddess, if you can hear me, you will definitely agree. Come, rest, sleep well, my child. Shar saw that the bishop asked him to sing along. Now that things have come to this, let's sing. If he has the chance in the future, he will definitely sing the hymn he learned today to the Goddess of Night. See if she is embarrassed. While singing along, Shal felt that a lot of the singer's potion was digested at once, and his spirit became more stable due to the digestion of the potion. He thought that he was probably the first person in history to sing the hymn of the night. Pray that wordless prayer, and shout out with your heart. The only destination is peace. Shal drew a crimson moon on his chest, and suddenly he seemed to see a dark place with moonflowers blooming. He closed his eyes, and a mirror appeared on the island of his mind. If there was forced brainwashing, the mirror would shatter. He was also not reluctant to sacrifice his own blood. Wait until the singing stops. Shal only felt the soul-soothing ability of the Sequence 5 Spirit Shaman. This ability is very suitable for treating insomnia. The strength of the insomniac path is to treat insomnia. What kind of a hell of a joke is this? He also had a little more inspiration, all singing. Can the singer plus secret prayer simulate the abilities of the midnight poet? Shal closed his eyes and counted his gains. The singer's digestion progress has moved, and the impact of eating an extra portion of Sequence 9 has been weakened. Etc. Only then did he realize that the singer also had to play the role alone. In the Fourth Age, Aquaman does not need to act, he is the king of the sea. Because it feels like the singers and the secret prayers play the same role. Shah simply omitted it and only realized it now. He couldn't pretend to be a secret praying man, praising other gods ungodly, and expect the progress of digesting both characteristics to increase together, right? My faith in the goddess is still not devout enough. Bishop Electra saw that Shah had understood something and left with peace of mind. He knew that his advice had worked, so he quietly left the room, leaving Shah space to think independently. Shah understood. We should sing the night hymn more often in the future, which is to praise the ancient sun god who is the unity of light and darkness. In the future, the digestion progress must be brushed separately, singing as a chanter and praying as a secret prayer. Maynard Jr. Ms. Gray unbuttoned a button of her black shirt. What's wrong? Shah looked at Allison Gray in confusion. It's not hot here. It's okay. I just want to use this to determine whether you are awake or not. Seeing this, Allison Gray coughed lightly and deliberately put on a serious look. The temptation failed and the fighting scholar was a little disappointed. She also wanted to use this as a sting to teach this little brother a lesson. He just warned her yesterday that she could do whatever she wanted but don't hurt anyone, but the next day she came to him and said she had fallen in love with someone else's wife. How could he not slap her in the face the next day? Allison now really wants to have some intimate contact with Shah. Then you should spend more. Shah rolled his eyes, stood up, walked across the desk, and unbuttoned the second button. That's more sincere, right? Allison just watched as Shah unbuttoned one of her buttons, then returned to his seat and went back to work. How dare you? The combat scholar flexed her knuckles. Do whatever you want, but don't hurt. Shah blocked back with what Allison said. He did no harm. After get off work, come with me for a drink. Allison raised her eyebrows slightly. Do whatever you want, right? She hasn't practiced her fighting skills for a long time, so this time she can teach this kid for free. Next time, I want to take a leave this afternoon. Shah handed over a note of leave and an apologetic look. He really has something to do this afternoon. Well, next time I invite you, you can't refuse. Allison nodded and approved the leave application without asking any questions. The sun sets in the west. Martin drove the carriage, picked up Alice, and the three of them went to an orphanage in Backland. Shah wanted to come and see, so he came, and he also found a spokesperson. Alice was a very capable girl. Even though she didn't speak Loan, she was still able to stand brilliantly among the children, accept their welcome and thanks, and calm the children. Even Martin, who was helping to translate, was in a hurry and was far from being as calm as Alice. Shah stood in the corner of the wall in the distance, looking at the lively group of people under the sun. He smiled and took a few steps back into the shadows. He seemed to have some understanding of how to adapt to different times. Good and evil are determined, morality is a constraint, and laws can be set by oneself. In daily life, innocent people should not be harmed. If it involves certain things, it will be counted separately. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.